Hello and welcome everyone to the Hugh Hatrick Show. It is great to see you. We're here. We're covering the whole country today. We've got Scotland, or kind of northeast England, almost into Scotland. We've got Wales. We've got Rue from Wales. We've got Neil from Midlands, roughly.
Don't swear at me, Hugh. Don't swear already.
And Matt, I have no idea.
Excuse me, I'm not putting up with this from Wales nonsense. I live in Wales. I'm from Leicestershire, so up yours, you mad Scottish twerp.
He's already swearing. He's only been going for 5 minutes. He's told, I'm not.
You think that's swearing? Oh, you're him.
Horrendous.
Well, aren't you Northamptonshire?
Silverstone. I'm going. I'm not having this. I'm
asking. I was listening to you and him chatting before, and you live work around Silverstone, so I've presumed that you're in Northamptonshire.
Yeah,
so.
I'm near there. I'm about 20 minutes away from Silverstone.
So, but that could. There's like 3 counties you could be in 20 minutes away from there. You could be Cambridgeshire.
I'm North
Bedfordshire.
Oh dear, no.
That's where my sister lives, I think. Well, actually, no,
I like how we've all just babbled on and nobody knows who our LTP is.
Well, that's because we get this out the way. And then we get to the quality, and we let him talk. You see, because he's not had the chance to do this before.
For the first time, we have Matt from RL250, the RL250 channel. Welcome to the show, Matt. How are you doing?
Not bad, thanks, Hugh. Thanks for having me on the show today.
Oh, you're very welcome. And can I say, what parts of the country are you representing today?
Today, East Midlands.
East Midlands.
East Midlands. The best Midlands.
Yeah.
The best Midlands.
I've just slated the Midlands for the last 2-3 minutes. And I'm sorry.
Half of this broadcast is from the East Midlands. So up yours, you baldy git.
Well done, Neil.
I'll have you. Come on.
No, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
So which part of the East Midlands are you from, Matty?
Just outside a place called Lincolnshire. That's where
I know Lincolnshire. We used to go on holiday. Do you know Mablethorpe, Sutton-on-Sea? That little bit?
Mablethorpe, all around there.
For the entirety of my family's holidaying experience, for as long back as I can remember, and before I was born, we used to go to Sutton-on-Sea every year for a week. Every year. So when people talk about Boston, I don't think Massachusetts. I think Lincolnshire, the proper one.
Boston.
One with all the Polish people in it.
Well, I am very, very, very happy that you could all join with me today in what is our second show of our new podcast that we do on our Monday night, where we talk about GT7 and Formula 1. And we're also going to ask Matt a good few questions about his time as a YouTuber and his love of racing and things like that. So that will come up as well. But it's great to have you on the show. So first of all, let's talk about the Race A. Who has done Race A today on GT7?
That's not me.
No, have you missed it? Have you? I can understand why. Oh, we've got Helen the Hobbit Williams has joined us, and that in the comments. And welcome to everybody in the comments. Feel free to write what you like, whether you agree with us or disagree.
No, don't.
We've finally been met by a Welsh person.
Controversy and
a healthy bit of racism, I think.
Was it? No, I wasn't quite hoping for that, but you never know. There is.
I've insulted everyone in the Midlands already.
Oh, that's all right. There was only 2 people watching.
That's right. As long as you didn't say that any of us were from Birmingham, we're okay. As people from the correct side of the M1 know, everyone in the BBC or London or Islington or in the South, not only do they think that anything above Watford is north, they think that if you say you're from the Midlands, well, you must be from Birmingham then, innit? They're practically Welsh.
But I did do Race A, and the funny thing was I was so busy trying to put the traction control on for the grid start that I accidentally drove off and gave myself a false start. So I started 4th, and by the first corner I was 11th.
This is why Hugh does not stream as often as he used to.
Too busy crashing his bus.
Well, I thought I'd made an improvement because I'd taken the traction control off. And then I find out that of course, you've got to keep the brake on, to keep yourself steady on the grid. So that was the end of that
Are
one.
you turning into an American? You know, when they get out of a car and the coal rolls off, they're like, I don't understand what happened there. They've got this thing you put up. They even call it the parking brake, but they still don't use it for parking. It's amazing. It's becoming an American. You've been there so often. You love it so much.
Yes, I've been there 6 times to America now, to Florida.
And you can still count to 6. Wow.
Yeah,
Bless
I
you.
do like it. Always on a shoestring. And I've always managed to do it on the budget of a Scotsman.
I remember that TV show.
Very little, which is, but no, it's good fun. I do love Florida. It's great fun, and you can do it for a lot less than you think, and still get actually a really good time. So it's definitely
Take sun
definitely
cream
worth.
and do not drink the tap water unless you boil
is-
it. That
yes,
includes
that is
coffee.
true. Yeah,
If somebody, you go to because we made this mistake and then we were there for 2 weeks and then we discovered it and got a bit of advice. So we were using the bottled water and boiling everything and all that kind of stuff. And then we were the last night we went to a Denny's and I'm like,
I love Denny's.
fancy a Denny's. Yeah, it's kind of like what's it like? I suppose it's like the American equivalent of a little chef, isn't it?
yeah.
Kind of,
Would you
yeah,
say?
pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah. And anyway, no, it was fine. Other than that, instead of having like a Coke or a Pepsi or something so chemical it kills all the germs, I had a coffee. But of course, they'd just made it with tap water and it doesn't get hot enough to kill all the bugs. So we were throwing up. I was throwing up for a week after.
Yeah, it can be really bad, actually, isn't it?
So great place. Go to see NASA. It's awesome.
And Daytona, which features on GTA. GTA.
And Sebring,
GT7.
don't forget, Sebring's there as well. I actually drove past the circuit on the way back to Orlando to get the flight home.
And if you want to do real racing there as well, you can do it much cheaper. But if you want to actually do like a rally course or a race course, because I went the last time I was there in 2018, they had the Ferrari show in Celebration just outside Orlando. And I went down there and it was brilliant. All these amazing. I had the first Ferrari Enzo, or not the Enzo. It was the new one, the F. What's the one that they have now? The absolute fastest one.
The LaFerrari.
Yeah, they had a LaFerrari.
Its code name was the F-150, which frankly sounds a hell of a lot better.
Yeah,
a lot better.
They had one of those.
The Ferrari.
And they had a Bugatti Chiron. But when I went round, what was quite funny was that I was walking around all the bits, and you get in America, they know how to do glitz really well.
Loud. You mean they know how to do loud?
And these two ladies approached me. Bear in mind, I'm a fat man with a big belly, and I'm not carrying a camera, but I do not look like an attractive tourist. But anyway, these two women.
No, you look like an American.
I see it. To be fair, I could be like an average Homer Simpson, kind of like so I'm walking around, not quite a vest and shorts, but I'm kind of along. And these two women in leather trousers and a kind of leather suit.
In Florida?
Yeah, well, they were in a kind of, it was like they have them like at Daytona, they have them in these kind of. It was obviously like a kind of motor racing, like grid girl.
Oh yeah, so there were models, but still,
models.
Leather, that's like
these kind of grid girl things.
The definition of what would be a sweat suit.
Yeah, it was actually
crazy.
And so they offered me a chance. They said, "Look, come to our race school, and you can do it." And it was literally about half the price of what you'd pay in Britain, because they've got loads of space. And I think it was in the south of Florida. They had some big rally school, and you could do all sorts of. They had like Subaru WRXs. So if you actually want to do real rallying or real racing, they've got some amazing deals. Even like at Daytona, you can drive a NASCAR type thing. And at the time, it was only like $200. It wasn't a lot. Yeah.
Oh, they sound very nice. I mean, I know there's a lot of, including a lot of Americans who disparage NASCAR racing. Apparently,
of course,
it doesn't matter what happens in the race. On the last corner, bend, curve, or whatever, they're always going to crash. There's going to be a big crash because someone's going to I'm going to get to the front now. That was something I saw in a video last week.
There was a series on Netflix about NASCAR. I can't remember what it's called. Not long back.
Are they trying to do like a Drive to Survive, but for NASCAR?
It's like Drive to Survive, but for NASCAR. And you're right. Every race, crash at the end.
Boom.
On purpose. So we've done 9 million laps, all behind each other.
Wait at the end.
And nothing's happened, so we better do something. Crash. There we go. Ratings.
So
think about
Robbie
ratings.
Coltrane, the lovely Robbie Coltrane that we all loved.
Yeah.
Before he was Hagrid, he, of course, was mad American V8 nut and motorbikes and stuff like that. He was in that. And he did a Channel 4 series about 1 billion years ago, probably when Matt was like, how old are you?
Matt's only 33.
What? How old are you?
33.
33. So he's not. I'm nearly as old as you because I'm, as everybody knows, 28, and have been for many years now. So anyway, yeah, it was early 90s. I think he did it, called Robbie, and I didn't get the reference then because I'd never seen the film because I'm an idiot. Cole Trains, Planes, and Automobiles. And it's years later I found out about the film.
Yeah, I've heard
Trains,
that.
Planes, and Automobiles. I just, and no, it's really six episodes, half-hour each. Get it on DVD or something. It's brilliant. Each one's on a different thing. So there's one about diesel, there's one about two-strokes, which he hates, one about V8s, and so on. The supercharger. Oh, the supercharger one's great because it starts with Mercedes and the blower Bentley, and then moves on to World War II, where you've got the same sort of fight between the Spitfire and the Messerschmitt Bf 109 Daimler engine, and God, they all sound so good. But in the V8 one, he gets to drive with this very exuberant American lady. Good job, Robbie! In an ASCAR. And oh my God, it sounds so nice. And he's there going,
They do sound good.
she says, you can start the engine, and he goes, whoo, and this thing, like that. They must have some good microphones.
Yeah.
And she's going, you can go. He goes, wait a minute, can I just blip the throttle a bit? And he's there going, he's literally going, whoop, whoop, like this every time he pushes the throttle. It's fantastic. Proper enthusiast. So,
they had one of his cars. They had his Jeep, an old Jeep at the Scottish Motor Museum, the Scottish Transport Museum.
Okay.
Yeah, they had it put in there when they first opened it. But yeah, no, it was quite a thing. So it's well. So I go back very quickly to Grand Theft. I say Grand Theft.
Grand Theft
It does feel a bit like that sometimes, but it's the.
Well, I keep asking for guns, but apparently it's not part of racing. I don't know.
To GT7. Now I did do a race here, and I had a disaster of a race, but it was quite funny. And it kind of made me realize I know why they've used the Skyline, because the Skyline that they have, German Kiwi is good
German
to see you.
Kiwi.
It's good.
And Helen knows that because I've played the lot.
I don't think
the lot
Kiwi set a time this week. I haven't seen your time. He's either so far up the ranks that I haven't seen it, because I'm so far down the rank that I haven't seen his time. But it's good to see you, German Kiwi.
I have a quick question, very quick one. He said illustrious.
Yes.
You know, I'm just reading through the comments here because I'm very good at doing two things at once. It's a new talent that I've recently discovered, so I'm using it quite often. And he's called
Multitasking.
Exactly. He's called us an illustrious group.
He's done it.
So
Yeah.
let's just. While
he's done a
you make
29
your comment, I'm going to look up the exact definition of illustrious to see if we can fit it.
We are. I think is that not a good thing? Illustrious. We are kind of
Illustrious, is that a compliment or not?
Yeah, I think that's a compliment.
Oh, yeah.
I think that is definitely, and he's called us gents, so there we are. We are gentlemen. So
I'll take that.
Yeah.
Take that.
There we go. And he's done a 29.7 on race A. Goodness me, that's a fraction off Tisney's. And I'm sure he's on into the 29s. I'm trying to remember what
I remember that I had with German Kiwi. If you remember, months ago we had, I think it was race A, and it was little GR Yaris things at that Lake Louise waste of time.
Oh yeah, that's a some
and
track.
He beat everybody by about 15 seconds. He was gone. And that's how I know him. That's where we found the channel from.
Yeah, he's very good on Daily Race A, because whenever I go in Daily Race A for like 2 or 3 a week that we do, German Kiwi's always in there. And he's always right at the front, and I'm struggling
He's rapid.
He's rapid on Daily Race A. He's so good.
And Woody Boy as well.
Humble with it, you see.
Yeah.
Last week he was trying to downplay how fast he was, even though Hugh was going on. Hugh was dribbling. Oh, you're so fast, how do you do it? Sorry, I'm doing it wrong. Oh, come on, you're too fast. How do you do it? I want to know. Tell me now, I'm Jimmy Cranky. And so on.
Do I really
well known and very distinguished, eminent.
Yes.
Or an obsolete one, shining brightly. So, 2 of you are shining brightly. I'm not sure. I've cut my hair short.
You're
so it looks
borderline
like
shining brightly. Parts of your head are shining brightly.
I've got the forehead thing going on.
It's like you're trying, but you've not quite pulled it off.
No, I got sick of it and cut it off because it's getting too hot. It was a bit longer. Ask Helen. She was like, "You've cut your hair, liked it long," and I'm like, "Get lost, you weird hippie."
We need to ask German Kiwi how he is so quick. on this week's race A, because I think that's one of the things I would quite like to do for the show is to find out how you go so quick now, because it's a Skyline.
And I know that now.
The thing is, the Skyline does lots of oversteer whenever. There seems to be a thing with GT7 and road cars. The energy transfer is massive on any road car, isn't it? As soon as you come off the brakes on a slight corner, the back end's going to want to come round. But of course, Goodwood is kind of renowned for these kind of big slidey races, isn't it? For the classic cars sliding round the first corner and all that. When you see it on
Skylines fit into that, though.
No, but the Skyline handles like that, because as soon as you back off, everyone's sliding all over the place. So it's about.
That's the thing in Gran Turismo. Anything below Group 4, slippy.
Yeah.
Anything.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. Only race cars have grip. Real road cars in Gran Turismo don't have grip. No. This is the real racing simulator we are.
Penny Mallory
about here.
Hugh knows who Penny Mallory is. You two might not. I don't know if you've ever seen the Channel 4 car show in the 90s, Driven. That rings a bell for you.
And
Matt won't know what it is.
It was actually more popular than Top Gear.
It was more popular than Top Gear. Penny Mallory. It had this Irish fellow with glasses who ended up being sniped by Top Gear to try and turn Top Gear back into something popular before they just canned it. This is proper Top Gear, like proper.
With Quentin Wilson and all that.
Yes, well, they came along and ruined it with Jeremy Clarkson and Tiffany Dell. It used to be a proper car magazine show where people like Chris Goffey with his beard and his used to drive trucks and motorbikes and all sorts and tell you about road things. So good. Anyway, stop geeking out, Andrew. So there were three of them, and then Mike Brewer, from Car Fixie by Thingy. That's where he became famous. He was on it as well. He was like the watcher. You can buy a car, innit, fella. And then when the Irish guy went to Top Gear, Jason Pluto joined in. Of course, was a very successful racing driver in his own right. But Penny Mallory was a rally driver. And every time they had a race of any kind, so like they raced the Scooby-Doo and the Lancer, the Evo, new ones, she used to just wipe the floor with him every time. She's a superb driver. There's a fantastic video that's on YouTube of her interviewing Colin McRae in the new Ford Focus rally car. When he went to Ford and he was in the new car, talking about its development. And there's all these stupid Americans going, "Oh, that reporter seems to know what she's talking about." It was her car. She drove for Ford and he was actually driving her car. She wasn't a reporter interviewing him. She's actually a top flight rally driver interviewing one of the best rally drivers that's ever lived. It's just fantastic. There's all these people going, "Oh, she seems nice." Yeah, she's superb. Anyway, they used to do this thing where they did an S-bend test at 50 miles an hour, and they were doing coupes, and this is when the R34 GTR had come out. So they had a Volvo C70, they had the Jag XK8, I think.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And they had the R34. And the Volvo was shite and totaled all the cones. The Jag was pretty good and just hit a couple of them. It wasn't super tidy, but it was okay. She took the skyline around it, and it did it and looked a bit untidy. She says, "I'm doing that again because I've just figured something out." She did it again, and it went round this S-bend at 50 mile an hour, made out of cones, like it wasn't there. It might as well have been a straight line. And she said, "Right, the problem is this car's so clever and so good. It's rear-wheel drive until it starts to slip, and then it puts power to the front, does rear-wheel steer, firms up all the suspension, the computer sorts it all out for you," which is what a lot of criticisms about it was, is it wasn't as involving, because it did it. But if you don't have your foot down, it can't put power to the front and do all this stuff. So the first time, she'd lifted and tried to control the car, and it was fighting her. The second time, she didn't lift, and it just went... So, I mean...
The car is a bit like that, though, because when you get to the kind of far end corners, there's that big kind of right-hander, it's almost like a double right-hander, and you've got to kind of slow it down, but if you get enough, if you kind of get the car ready, you can accelerate quite nicely out of there.
So you need a bit of throttle. I mean, I don't know if this GT7 is clever enough to actually have got that right.
Well, to be fair,
not. No.
Well, to be fair, now, hang on.
I'm trying to be kind to them, It's like, maybe they got it right. No, maybe not.
He has said, "Oh, look at that! Well, we've got technology here." He says, how it's better to slip on a slippery
Dutchie. We've got Dutchie GT. Sorry, carry on.
Instead of trying not to. That's how I treat this car. I use its weakness to go faster. So there is definitely a thing with that you have to kind of use its. You've got to get it sliding to make that work.
What's that song? Your weakness is your sweetness. Is that right?
Hang on. It's your sweetness is my weakness, and it is by.
So close. It's not Rush, so it's like, why would I bother? I prefer the Collins English Dictionary version of great renown, famous and distinguished, glorious, or great. Yes, that one.
Good. I think that describes us to a T.
Yes.
That's it.
Yes, I'm Jeremy Clarkson. The fattest tall man Matt, who's a farmer in the world.
Before we have Matt running for the exits here.
Have a bit of a belly, I have noticed.
Suddenly realising he's got that last-minute dentist appointment that he needs to go, and he forgot all about.
Has anybody noticed Jeremy Clarkson's massively long eyebrow hair?
Yeah, he's always had...
Just me. They look like little squirrels crawling along his face all the time.
Yeah,
like little grey ones.
I've got them. I actually... When I was married to my darling wife, she used to moan at me because my dad had them like that long as well. He looked like kind of a Barnsley version of Gandalf.
How was nobody...
well, she's going, you're going to trim them off. So I used to deliberately leave them on because she was horrible. And then as soon as I had the opportunity, when we got divorced, I trimmed them off because it's so much better. And they get in the way and they're annoying. But yeah, it's an old man thing. Wait till you're old, mate. I don't know, might not.
So, let's get to race B. Let's have some structure to this.
What circuit is race A on? Because I've not looked. I had a quick look trying to find out.
Race A was
Is it on Goodwood?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not doing it then.
I don't like Goodwood.
I quite like Goodwood. I hate the chicane at the end, but I do like Goodwood.
So I'll tell you why I don't like Goodwood.
Go for it.
Because there are no kneel barriers around the outside of the circuit. It's just grass. And you can guarantee
old-fashioned.
that is where I will spend most of my time. So I avoid Goodwood because I quite like being on the grey stuff. And on most of the circuits, I have barriers. They help me do that.
Yeah.
So are you what do they call it? A wall rider? Are you one of them? Where you sort of bounce off to get round?
I'm more of a wall magnet.
So, you're a bit like Max Verstappen for all those years when at Monaco, when he used to attract himself to sticky out bits and lose a wheel or something while he was learning the circuit.
Ah, well. So race B then. Now we're at, it is Dragon Trail Gardens.
Just
in the group
quickly, Dutchy has said we need to start an anti-hards club. Do you mean like hard tyres?
Yes.
As in like racing
not
hards?
Not what you're thinking. No, not what you're thinking. He means hard tyres, not,
Oh no, I'm not. I'm old, so I'm pro hards because you get to a certain age and it's just
You take the same tablets as
anti-plasticine. What?
Oh,
The same what? Sorry, I didn't.
That's right. So race B then at Dragon Trail Gardens.
I don't know. You get these young dodgy people from the south in coming out of things like this. Poor Matty, he's like, I don't know what he's on about.
let's ask Matt. Let's ask our questions because he hasn't said anything. I feel like we need to get.
He did. He said one sentence earlier. I heard him.
So then, Matt, you've set a time on race B at Dragon Trail Gardens. What do you think of race B this week?
I think it's pretty good. I quite like Dragon Trail Seaside, so I've qualified for it, but I've not actually raced I'll probably race it tomorrow night on a stream. So I've just done a few laps just to qualify for it. It's a good race. I think that there's one or two bits on it you've got to be careful of. So the chicane at the start of the lap is one of them. There's a certain knack of doing it, a certain way you can just sort of like ride straight over the top of them sausage curves without actually making contact with them. But
love a sausage.
I've watched the replay of myself doing it on my lap to sort of try and see where the car is, exactly where the car is, and the margin is so tight that you're not going to get it every single time.
Yeah,
so,
it's horrible, especially when you start that chicane. I always find that the first corner is all right, the left corner, but just trying to get the line right to get the second bit. It's very easy for the car, especially on these hard tyres. It either understeers or it will suddenly oversteer, and you'll either go take too much curb or too much grass, or you won't actually get, or you'll hit the curb itself, and then the car will fly and it'll be really unsettled. It is tricky, but there's so much time in that.
It does.
Even Do
What was
you
that?
find it better, Hugh? Is the better option? Would you choose to ride the sausage or avoid it? Is my
I go
question.
in the middle if I can.
Excellent, excellent.
Does this mean he's bisexual?
Absolutely.
Right.
Sorry.
That's going to commercial. You know, it was.
It's a good job. Isn't there a setting for not suitable for children? I'm pretty sure we need one.
Mouthful of soap and water.
So,
You know,
just quick technical question: have I got it right that race B is in the GT86 again?
No,
that was last
three.
week. Yeah, race C is at.
I know race C is at Mr. Miyagi, isn't it?
Mr. Miyagi.
Mr. Miyagi circuit. Where you got to wax on and wax off to get around it.
Yeah.
That's in Group 4 cars, I remember.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I was watching Digit earlier.
Yeah, that's actually not too bad. That's actually quite a good combination. But on race B, so we've done the chicane, and there's loads of time in that. I always find as well braking for that first straight. You know,
And
once
you've got to get
chicane,
you've
it's
got to
very
get it right
hardcore.
for track limits there as well. You can cut. I think you can cut part of it, but if you cut the next one, I can't remember which way around it was. It's been a while since I've been on that. But you've got to cut the right one, haven't you? Because if you cut the wrong one, 5 seconds, we kill you. So yeah, I hate track limits. They do my head in.
I love track
Carry on.
limits. Me and track limits have a long-standing relationship.
So
It's
here's
when
an
they
interest.
discount your lap on a speed run before you've even started the lap.
Here's my problem.
Hell is that
And I
about?
found this when we had Le Mans as a daily race.
Mans.
Not last week,
Yep.
the week before, Le Mans. So you can do a lap and then do a lap after it, take exactly the same line through the corner as you took on the previous lap, but somehow on that lap, I get given a 1.5 second track limit penalty when the lap before that, none.
Yeah, it's inconsistent, isn't it?
It's
It's
like
like
Formula
mad.
One regulations and how they're it's just random. Well, it's not random.
Does anyone else in the comments?
Probably what it was is that the field had spread out, and the wonderful people in We Don't Agree with Liberty Media and all their football fans are brought in with Netflix. If it's spread out, they're like, oh no, there's no jeopardy anymore, and we're trying to make Big Brother with cars. Let's bring out a safety car. So that it all goes, so all that hard work, a really good driver. You remember that driving things really well thing that people used to do once upon a time in what I think they used to call racing? And then they would get there and everybody goes, it's not fair. They're faster than me. I want to be up there. We should all be the same. And I want to shoot all of them and murder them. And it's like, can we just not watch the race and then let them race? If you're that bothered, stick them all in the same car. You won't have any fans left, but okay. Make it loud.
Yeah,
Loud and fast, and then see. Next. Yeah,
So
that's what
going
it was.
back-
The computer decided you had too much of an advantage and wanted to stop you.
I was wondering if there was a point to that whole.
Don't worry about that. Don't worry. Oh, Aussie Pug is in. Good to see you, Aussie. And Aussie designed my libraries for my Group 3 cars. So thank you very much again to Aussie. I've yet to have a chance to actually use them, but I will try and stream this week, so I will be able to put them out and do it. Now, Lars says, I've just noticed how Hugh and Arnold 50 have nice presentable rooms. Niels looks like a teenager's pit.
This
is no
back here
underpants.
is where the magic happens. Let me tell you.
It looks to me he's got an air conditioning unit. We've got a fan.
Yeah.
We've got an air conditioning unit.
Where the magic happened, past tense. Where the magic no longer happens is probably more
Sausage
accurate.
time. So Larson also calls it. I think it's Larson also calls it Mr. Miyagi. So that's good.
So let me know in the comments what you think of Race B as well, as we're just talking about that. What is the thing that you like about it? What are the things that frustrate you about it? What are your tips? Now, of course, it's got that incredible last section where you've got those, is it 4 or 5 right-hand bends, isn't it? Right-hand corners. And you've got to try and get it. The first one is horrible because you've got a timing point just as you as you hit it in the first bit, and then you're trying to get the car over to the right. And if you brake a bit, you'll find, or even if you kind of back off, it seems to want to just understeer and go straight on the other bit. So who's got any tips to get round there in a good time.
Yeah, there is a knack I find to doing it. There's a knack of getting it in. So what I try to do is there's kind of like I can't really see it. So it's like on the left hand side, there's kind of like those black Dragon Trail like billboard things that stick out. Dragon Trail like branding. The last one of them is when I go down and start shifting down to second gear. But as I'm doing it, I'm sort of turning into the corner and I'm sort of balancing the brake and throttle at the same time. So what I'm doing is that I'm basically trying to carry it through as fast as possible. And I'm aiming for the apex on the way out in second gear. I think by now, this is kind of like the second or third of those apexes, because it's kind of like turn 8. I remember like turn 8 on Istanbul and F1, it's kind of like that, but going the other way. And then short shift it, because I'm in the Porsche, so I don't know whether the car makes a difference, but I'm in the Porsche. I short shift to third, get to a point where I kind of feel a bit like, right, if I floor it now, the car's going to be able to stick. And I just floor it whenever I feel like it's going to stick. And then just kind of like in between the third and the fourth apex. And then just floor it and just aim for that apex to the other side of the straight when you come out. And just basically just try to do that every single time. I've spun out. I've spun out God knows how many times today trying to do it. But that's kind of what I try to do every time. So momentum, I find, is the key right from the beginning, right the way around, right the way out the other side onto the straight.
Because even the corners...
have I got the right corner? Is this the one that always seems to remind me of turn 8 at Turkey?
Yeah, turn 8 Turkey, but
because it had all these left-handers
going the other way. That's
the one.
Because if you go in slow enough to know you're going to get it round, no problem. 5 people come past you, will smash into you. Well, I do. I mean, I'm rubbish, so it's normal. Or you carry a bit of speed in there, and then you suddenly find out towards the end that there's a wall going high, which Mr. Chandler would know all about, because he's got a magnet.
The run-up's very bumpy as well. So
but even the
huge curbs, isn't it? It's huge curbs.
Even before if we take that
4 or 5 times today, the last left-hander before you go down the hill into that first 90-degree right, you know what I mean? It's like a sequence of 90-degree rights. That last left-hander before you go down that hill, if you go too wide on the exit, there's a raised bit of curb, sort of over the curb, if that right on the edge.
And it's horrible.
It sticks up. If you touch that, instant death.
Yeah. I find those corners, even as you come out of the chicane. So you've done the first chicane on that bit, and you go along the straight, and then you've got the hairpin, and it's really hard coming out of the hairpin because the car either it'll swap ends or it'll want to, be so. You have to be totally straight to be able to get out of that and accelerate at any kind of reasonable level. Then the first little corner is fine, but then you've got the right, and then you've got the left, which is really tricky. How do you manage that? Because I find my car, even if I go in third gear or fourth gear, I was doing it in the Porsche earlier. It's so tricky to try and get that smooth so you can get a good apex to then get on to the all the 5 right hand questions, or right hand corners. It's a kind of how do you approach that section? Because in this track, every corner is vital, isn't it? You can't really stop thinking. There's no way to let your mind rest, isn't it? You've got to be concentrating all the time.
You have to approach them backwards.
Sorry, I'll go Matt first. If that's okay.
Go Matt first.
Yeah, those curbs, because I remember I was doing a manufacturer's race, GTWS, coming out the chicane on the final lap, and I was streaming it as well. And I dropped it on that curb because the ends of the curbs, they're a bit steep, and I spun it out, and I was just thinking, oh, God. I was just, really, proper feeling it as if, I've just literally chucked it away. So those curbs are nasty. I sort of try to keep an eye on them as early as I can, knowing the circuit, because I think when you go down the hairpin at the bottom of the hill, those 2 curves there, the left and the right, getting on those curves is going to get you around them faster, but if you do it too much, you'll trip over them, go over the steeper top of it, and you'll just spin out, and and it all goes from there. So try to get as much as the car as possible onto that curb without going over all of it. So you want about 80-90% of it. It's really sort of try to get it on those curves
Mm-hmm.
If you're unsure, just go look at the replay and
Yeah.
see when your car's on the curb. Look on the replay how much of your car is on that curb,
Yeah.
and then just try to copy that again. Just repetition. Just try to copy
Yeah.
it every single time.
There was a big difference between the Porsche and I did the Ferrari after that because I was struggling on the Porsche. But the Ferrari has really good brakes. I thought, my goodness, the Ferrari can stop really well, and it wasn't quite as dodgy under braking for the Group 3 car. I thought I'd try that because I was looking at different cars that had set good times, and a lot of people were using the 911. But it was, I found it was quite dodgy. I know when I watched Key do it, he'd put the brake balance down to -2 to kind of help him. But then on his first race, he dropped it on that curb. He kind of spun off, and that was it.
Is that his fault or somebody else's?
No, to be fair, he just went on the curb too much, and it went out wide, on that bit when it was higher, and he just spun off. It was really dodgy. But to be fair, he went to last, and within a lap or two, he was back into like 11th. He is quick. I mean, he can really fly and catch up as if we're standing still. This
is one of the skills of the top races, isn't it? Though, and we talk about what makes somebody. When Bottas gets pole over Lewis Hamilton, 7 times world champion, people are like, but then has no world championships, and people go, well, what's the difference? One of the differences is the ability to be that precise again and again and again and again and again, and not. It's tiny differences, isn't it, between going super fast and then, like you say, Matt, ending up just that little bit too far on that curb and you're in the air.
Yeah, attention to detail. That's it.
It's attention to detail, but being able to do it again and again and again. You might be able to do it like once, twice, 3 times, or every third lap. You got it perfect, and it's that's that difference. The variance between what you're doing, the ability to keep it within those limits. So you're going fast enough to be fast, but not overdriving it, not pushing it too hard, not letting yourself get too emotional about it and go, "Whoa, I'm enjoying this." Boom. Oh, it's like I keep going on about Jackie Stewart. Jackie Stewart talked about how that he learnt when he was doing shooting, because he was an Olympic level clay pigeon shooter as quite a young man before he even got into racing at all, because his mum didn't want him to do it. His older brother had done it. He was 10 years older, and his mum forbade him basically because she knew how dangerous it was. But he learnt you have to sort of take away all the emotion from what you're doing, because you've got to be super calm, able to concentrate on what you're doing. So we learnt that before he even started motor racing, and he loads of interviews where he talks about it. So that's one of the things. But then you've got the physical aspect of it, which I don't have. I don't have the emotional aspect of it either. I get either excited or frustrated or whatever, and then it's like, but if you can sort of dial that back, and then you got the reactions, and as you say, Matt, or Neil, it might have been you, just repetition until it becomes automatic, being able to get it just right.
That was definitely Matt.
Oh, okay.
When Hugh asked how you would approach a corner, my initial response was backwards.
On fire, yeah.
Upside down.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. Now, Larson has asked a question for Matt, saying, "Do you?" Oh, Pagan Ant has joined us as well. Good to see you, Pagan. It's good to see you. If you turn off traction control, is it useful, especially in things like Group 3? I will put that to Matt.
It can be, because the traction control depends what car you're in. So like in road cars and stuff like that, the traction control tends to slow you down a lot. And you'll notice it, if you're on a wheel in particular, I don't really use a pad, so I can't really say much for pads. But like when you're coming out of corners, you can feel the traction control is kicking in to obviously stop the car from spinning out. So, and again, in Group 3, I use it on traction control 1 for Group 3s, and anything from Group 3 up. Just a little bit. On a lot of the Group 3 cars, they are very slidey anyway. But I find that with the traction control, again, it's just a bit of security to get us around the corners. And some Group 3s, I tend to not use traction control. Like the Mercedes, the traction control, I do use it when I do drive the AMG, because that's quite a slidey car for me. It doesn't really suit my driving style. But I tend to sort of really try to glide through corners, and traction control and finds what works best to help me do that. I don't really think it makes a difference if you got it on like 3.
Then
And you go to 1, you'll definitely get faster. But if you got it on 1 and you go to 0, it may make a difference in some cars, but not really. I don't really notice a huge difference with the traction control on 1 and the traction control on 0. But again, it just depends what car you're in and how that car responds and how you know the car as well.
Yeah. Now, German Korea said I used traction control on the Civic, and it was faster for him. Now that was that really overpowered Civic, and was that the one that we were doing? Was that the one last week? Where it was the one at the long course, which was actually quite a nice one. It's a difficult one because I was really struggling for for time trial pace and race pace. So quite recently, I decided I will turn off traction control even on Group 3, and for me, it has made a difference. I think because you're more hesitant in applying the power, so I'm probably waiting to actually applying the power in a better place out of a corner because I think I can't if I'm too quick on this, it'll just spin. So I've actually it's probably maybe 3-4 tenths quicker on the whole by turning it off, and especially on Group 3 because I was really struggling on Group 3. Now I'm finding I'm slow at Group 4, so it's kind of gotten better at one and worse at the other. So it's kind of, and I used to be quite good at Group 4. But no, that's because you two, both Neil and Matt, you've been able to really get very competitive times now. Especially I've noticed Matt, you're not far away from Tisney's times. In fact, sometimes you're kind of level with him. What have you say? Because you're not been streaming that long. So what would you say has been the thing that's got you this extra speed?
I think it's like what I said, it's just repetition and practice. I mean, I do spend quite a lot of time practicing. I probably spend more time practicing and qualifying than what I actually do doing the dailies each week. It's because when I know that when I'm on stream, I always go straight when I'm doing dailies, I go straight back in between every daily and I'm just qualifying, and it's just repetition again, just getting to know the car, how you respond to driving the car, how the car responds to the track. I watch a lot of replays of all the top guys as well. So go right to the very top of the leaderboards, like number 1, number 2, those kind of guys. Look at the replays and look at all the little bits that they're doing. So where are they braking? What exact moment is their braking input going into a corner? What the turning input's like? What the gas input's like? The acceleration input? All the little bits that they're doing, and just try to copy it, really. And then just keep going at it again and again until we know that we can do it. I feel like I can get around. I can just get around the track. It's pretty much all there is to it.
No, not quite. I think I did it a bit once 2 years ago.
I find,
this is
let Neil give us.
I've got quicker because I've relaxed more. That's the biggest thing that's helped me. I think get quicker. If I'm enjoying it, if I'm just relaxed and I'm just driving, I just find pace. If I'm stressing and I'm getting agitated and I'm getting worked up, then I struggle.
That does help. It does help. Because I get to a sort of point on like some of the dailies, like last week at Laguna Seca and the Genesis, I loved it. The 4-wheel drive on Laguna Seca, I was just smashing times out on there. But some dailies, some weeks, we just don't like them, and it's just the way that the dailies fall. And I think on those weeks, we do sometimes get a bit annoyed at it. And we do sometimes get a bit frustrated that why are we not going quick? I've been following this ghost for like half an hour, if not longer. And I'm stuck on, 2 tenths, 1 tenth, half a tenth, whatever it is. I just can't go any faster. But it's just, again, it comes in time. I always never forget that it's always the enjoyment that's more important. And that's the reason that you do it. It's not to set the fastest possible time that you can to get as high up the leaderboard as you possibly can. It all comes back to you enjoy it, and that's why you do it.
This is why I don't really. I might qualify. I might do a bit of practice and see if I can improve the time, but I don't. I try to stay out of that kind of I've got to go faster. I've got to get this time, sort of mindset. If I go down that route, then I get too worked up and I try too hard and then I overdo it. Whereas if
Yeah,
I
because
just
you don't really have to. You don't have to do
Yeah.
it at all. You don't really have to sit there for hours and
my-
hours doing it.
No, my streams have changed sort of quite a bit, I would say, over the last probably the last month or so. I've just gone back to just having a laugh. I've even gone to the point today that I've got a dancing sausage on the screen. If somebody punts me or does something, then I'll call them a sausage. I'll press the button, and then a little dancing sausage pops up. Yeah, he just does a little moonwalk and all sorts.
Superb. That's fantastic.
I don't really.
Your background's graphic design anyway, isn't it? So it's fun making those little things. Yeah.
And you know, I don't mind. You know, it's nice to win. Everyone loves a win. It's great. But if I don't, if it's been a funny race that's had a couple of moments in it, that's the main thing for me.
So a question for both Matt and Neil. So, I mean, there are people out there that think that their time is what gives them their fun, and that's the way they are, I guess. Would you say that it's, if you do a good job, you've done a good job, or you've improved, or you've conquered a little corner that you couldn't do as well before, or you've found something out, little mini sort of incidences of success, that your success is more to do with that you feel you've done a good job and less to do with the actual outright time?
Yeah, that's the kind of tricky thing for me, I think, because if I set a time and I think, oh, that's not a bad time actually, and oh, that's really good though, but oh well, on a particular corner here and there, oh, I went a bit wide at the apex. If I get this lap absolutely perfect and then get the apex as well, I can go quicker by like half a tenth or whatever. But then 45 minutes later, we've not hit the apex. We're half a second away from what we do. And then again, it just goes, because I sort of get like that a little bit where it's kind of like,
spoils the success you had, spoils the joy you had before, because you've like, oh, I've got to get this right. How about you?
Yeah.
That's a good. German Kiwi gives a very good point there. He says he has two accounts, one with qualification and one without. Racing from the back helps me deal with practicing overtakes and dealing with traffic in general. I think that's good. That is a good way. And then I have to say, I only use Ghost if I'm really frustrated. And I think because I like to try and get there myself, or try and do good as time as I can myself. But if I'm stuck, then I'll put the Ghost on and try and get that little bit quicker. Because if you could kind of grasp on, I did that with one of the Le Mans one with Tisney's race guide when he did his replay, and that was the only way that I was able to kind of just hang on to him enough and see where he was braking, see what kind of line he was taking, and with that took me about a second quicker. Although I was still miles off his time at the end, it was still he helped me in crucial bits just by having that Ghost, which kind of worked well. But yeah, so do you use the Ghost earlier, or do you kind of wait till you have had a go yourself?
I never use a Ghost.
Usually, what I normally do is I'll go to the daily at the start of the week, like today. I go to the daily.
Yeah.
Firstly, I go about what cars are people using at the top of the leaderboard. Yeah. That kind of gives a bit of a flavour as to what car I'm going to go for. So I saw the Porsche. Okay, we're going to go Porsche. So I get in the Porsche. Right, what's the fastest time on the leaderboard in the Porsche? So I think a guy had done a 32 flat something at the time that I was doing it. Yeah. So straight in, watch the replay, watch it for about 10, 15 minutes, breaking it down, all of the bits I was talking about earlier. So braking, accelerating, turning inputs, all that stuff. Yeah. Then I think, all right, okay, so we'll get that Ghost on. So it's the same Ghost of the replay that I've watched. Right, we'll go through and just go following round. So normally the first lap is a bit of a sighter, and then from there we sort of start to bed ourselves in, and then we just keep going until I feel like I've done enough. Then I've got a good time. So yeah, Ghost pretty much from the off. It helps us to learn the circuit and the car, and just go from there. And then I might change Ghost sometimes. I do change Ghost just for a bit of variety, really, because they're all pretty much the same. You'll notice at the very top that all of the lines and everything on all the corners and stuff, they're all pretty much exactly the same. It's just the case of who can drive that car better. So it just comes down to raw ability at like the very, very top. But just keep following them. Just keep following them and just keep going until we feel like I've maximised it for that session that we're
giving you a
on.
limit. Yeah,
We've got to a limit. We've done enough, and that's it.
Now,
So Neil, hold on a minute. What about you, Neil? What do you think?
I have a different attitude towards the game as a whole. So my main kind of concern, I guess would be the best word to use, is I want to give everybody that watches the stream a good time. So when I first started YouTube, I was aware that there are people that go out and they're A+ drivers and they want to set the fastest times and they want to win every race, and that's fine. But I'm aware that I'm probably not skilled enough, or I'm not going to get to that point. So I've kind of resided to the fact that I know I'm not going to be as quick as that. I might be if I put enough time into it and I watch the replays and things, but I'd rather just be more of an entertainer and just have a bit of a laugh with it than try hard and get quicker, because I know what will happen if I start trying hard and I watch replays and I put too much thought into it. I'll just get myself worked up. Yeah. And when I get worked up, that's when mistakes come, and then that adds to the frustration. Then it's just a massive snowball effect, and then it's happened before where I've gone by, well, this race has not gone well. I'm ending the stream, and I've done it a few times. Yeah. And I kind of sat back recently, probably, I don't know, maybe 5-6 weeks ago, and I sat back and I actually looked back over some of my streams, and I thought, this is just horrendous. If I was watching me, I'd switch it off. So I kind of thought, I don't want to do that anymore. So I'm just going to have a laugh with it. Hence the dancing sausage and things. It's just, I just.
Yeah, I think that's what gives it a unique thing, isn't it? Everyone's looking for a unique.
Yeah, you do enjoy the driving, obviously.
I enjoy the driving, because I'm a race fan. Yeah,
yeah,
and that part, like I say, if I get a win, or if I get pole, then you'll hear me on the stream go, oh, I'll take that.
Yeah.
Well, that's all right.
Yeah.
But, that's kind of a bonus. That's kind of a little like a side mission, if you like. Yeah. My main focus is to just enjoy it, because it makes me feel better if I'm enjoying it. And Larson will say this. Larson points this out quite often. But if I'm enjoying it, I'm quicker. And it's not because I'm trying to go quicker. It's just because I'm more relaxed. Because I drive slightly differently to how most people would drive, because I don't have full feeling in my feet. My braking and my accelerating is just muscle memory. So it takes me a few laps for me to get that kind of sort of rhythm and that kind of feel. So I'll get to a point in the track and my eyes will pick it up, and then obviously my leg will just go, right, well, that's where I need to start braking. And that's why I use some of the assists that I do, because I can't see the braking points on the side of the track. I have to use the markers in the road or on the circuit. And after a few days of streaming, I'll get to maybe Wednesday or Thursday, and then I'll find that it's just second nature.
Yeah.
The problem is, then I've only got 2 days of daily races where I'm actually mildly competitive, and then the next week resets and I go onto a different track, and then I have to start the whole process again. But I enjoy it. I certainly enjoy it a lot more now than what I have done previously, and it's literally just because I've taken a different attitude towards it. I'm nowhere near. I'm not as competitive anymore. I look at it from a different sort of perspective.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think that's a very wise way of doing it, actually, because I mean, just even if you just think of it as a numbers game, there can only be one person at the front.
Yeah.
So if winning is the only thing that ever gives you any kind of fun, no wonder there's so many miserable race drivers that make excuses.
And I think that was it. I think that was it. I was going out and I was starting a race, and I was just in my head, I want to win. And if I don't win, I'm spitting my dummy out. Whereas now, I'll start a race and I'll go, right, well, let's see if I can at least maybe try and finish where I started, or if I gain a few positions, or I'll aim for maybe a top 10. say. But at the same time, I'm also thinking, right, well, this guy's driving like an absolute melon, and this is going to make for an amazing video. So that's probably more important to me in the time.
Yeah,
So it makes me feel more relaxed, and I just enjoy it more. And I think the numbers that I've seen, analytics wise, on the channel, have been more than what they have been when I've been a right miserable old man. So now I'm happy and bubbly, and people can see a dancing sausage. Everyone's enjoying it more. Everyone loves it. I love it. I made it the other day.
I realised I've gone in and left to clean the door.
You go and do your thing, because I've got a question from Larson that you can answer last. What the hell was that accent? I don't even know. Right, so Larson was asking about... I'll just state, because from what Matt was saying about the way he goes about getting faster, I also understand, because it's a process of learning, and I love learning. You know, when you're researching into something, whatever it might be, whatever subject it might be. My background is science, so I've always enjoyed doing experiments, and I've kind of it got in my head, I don't know if you agree, Matt, that you're doing a process of learning the track, learning the corners, going a bit quicker, and like you're saying, that you look at one corner, you've done a really good time, you're really happy with, you've enjoyed the process of getting that time and learning everything you need to do and improving, and then you see one corner where it's gone wrong, and it switches from enjoying the process of learning to, I've got to get this right, and you lose the enjoyment, because you're not doing a fun thing anymore.
To me, that's exactly what happened to me. That's what
it's subtle, isn't it? It's like a subtle change of focus, but it makes all the difference.
Because of the things that I suffer with, my mood can switch in seconds.
So you've got to manage your mind. Now I know all about this.
And
from experience. And people don't get it. They don't understand. They think, what's the problem? It's only that.
Yeah, and that's the thing. A lot of people used to say to me, it's just really a game. But they're right. It is just a game. But when and it's not. This goes for so many people in so many different activities. If you suffer from that kind of thing, and you're not succeeding in what you're doing, and you're always striving for perfection, if you don't get perfection, it's a massive problem, and it just sets everything off, and you end up just exploding. And it happened to me so many times, and I kind of just became very aware that it was probably quite uncomfortable for a lot of people to watch.
Especially if they don't understand it, if they don't know why, if they haven't got any experience of it, all they see is someone having a meltdown or whatever, or getting angry. Exactly, and they've got no clue why it's happening. They can't put themselves in that position.
No, exactly that. You can't. You don't really. I've always had this kind of sort of phrase. You don't know how somebody's feeling until you've walked in their shoes. And it's so true, because you can't. You don't know what somebody's thinking. You don't know how they're feeling. You can't. You don't understand what's going on in that person's head just by watching them on YouTube. And it is hard. It's really hard, and especially difficult when you've got people watching you live on the internet for hours and hours.
And it is harder to do a good time when people are watching. I remember Flash Stagger talking about that. He really struggled to do his streams and do the time trial and get a really good time. He does manage it, but he says it's much harder when he's got lots of people watching. Than when it's not, and that is true. I'm sure the two of you both have come up with that, isn't it? It's
it just reminds me, and it's this is something I've had to change in over the last 25 years. I've had to change in a lot of my attitudes towards a lot of different things. So, for example, when we used to go on holiday or go for a drive somewhere, we were trying to get somewhere, and you find a traffic jam and it's taking your time, and you're like, we're meant to be there by 5 o'clock and all this kind of stuff. I had to give up on that, and it's the old adage, the maxim that you got to make it about the journey, not the destination. and we would just have fun.
Yeah.
And every kind of stupid thing that went along, not always. I mean, if the car blew up, that's happened a couple of times. That wasn't quite so much fun. But still, you can have a laugh with it. And I've had people sort of say, why are you finding this funny? This is because it is funny. And I have two choices. I can either totally destroy myself by getting so angry with the situation I can't control, or I can just have a laugh with it and enjoy it. Take the joy out of the bits of it I can. You know?
Exactly that. Exactly that.
There's two choices. Anyway, right, so Larson, I promised them I would get this question in. So where's the question gone?
That's about half an hour ago.
We were talking. I promised. I made the promise. Where's it gone? Right, so real life. A friend said to me that if I practiced the Nordschleife over and over and get good there, I'd be faster everywhere else. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Ooh, yeah, because the Nordschleife, it's got a bit of everything, hasn't it?
Somebody actually put that in there.
It's got everything. You go slow, you go fast, you go a little bit fast, you go a little bit slow, you slow down a bit more than other corners and whatnot. So, yeah, if you get good at Nordschleife, then you can definitely it's kind of like transferable skills, isn't it?
That's it. I wouldn't say once you're good at Nordschleife, you're instantly going to be be quick at every other track.
No, not really.
Because you still need to learn the circuit.
It's a stepping stone.
The curbs at Nordschleife are kind of different to everyone else, aren't they?
It will certainly give you. It will help you pick up other tracks more quickly, I think, and it will help you understand how certain corners need to be taken, because you can take a corner. It's not as easy as wide, tight, wide. It very much depends in real life. Yeah.
Absolutely.
He knows. Is it 9 o'clock yet? Yeah, we're safe. We're fine.
This is not the BBC. I'm pretty sure you can swear. Just think of it that like the old beer thing. It's 9 o'clock somewhere.
And this is one of the things that I get a little bit. The phrase "real driving simulator" on Gran Turismo needs to just get straight in the bin, as far as I'm concerned, because it is so far away from real life racing. It's a joke. Because you'll see people, especially on some of the tighter turns, they'll come in third, and they'll shift all the way down to second to get rotation, and then they'll shift back up to third again. You'd never do that in real life.
Real life, the engine would pop out of the...
You'd lose your gearbox before you've even got to the apex. It'd be gone. And things like that kind of take away some of the realism for me. And it depends on the following corner. Because a racing driver, there'll be the lines of a corner. You're preparing on a section of corners. You're preparing 2-3 corners in advance. So exits are important, and some of the exits in Gran Turismo aren't right. So there's too many differences to call it a real driving simulator for me. I know that's miles away from the question that Larson asked. I've gone on a bit of a tangent.
But it has answered it. I think. I mean, but it's true though, because I remember doing a Mazda driving day at Ingliston in Edinburgh many years ago, probably about 20 years ago, and it was driving in RX8s or what was the one that they had? Yeah, it was the RX. No, not the RX8.
The RX8 is the latest one with a little 1300.
It was, yes, it was that one. It was that car, and it was also Mazda 6s and things like that. Now, they allowed you to use the kind of longer part of the circuit. Bear in mind, Ingliston is tiny, so that it wasn't really a very long. They're kind of back straight, they're kind of kinking it, and then there was a hairpin at the end. But I was driving the RX8 and I changed down too early, and the actual back wheels locked, and the instructor was really annoyed because he said, "I will tell you when to change down," because I'd braked, got the car slowed down, and I changed gear.
Was it from Glasgow, miserable git?
No, one of these things. But I changed down too early, and it could just momentarily the back wheels locked, and that. So the revs didn't go that far up, to be fair. But it's certainly it does it in real life. You've got to be far more careful. But I'd also say as well that I think they make the cars harder to drive. Now I'll be interested in Kiwi and Dutch's view on this as well. I think they make the road cars harder to drive in the game than they are in real life. Now, maybe it's because the tire combinations that something's put on. But when I did a driving day at Mercedes World, and I drove a Mercedes AMG C43, which was a 4-wheel drive, on their handling track, I was expecting this car to be quite. I mean, I knew it would be quite reasonable around corners because it's tight corners. It was a blooming dream to drive. You know, in Gran Turismo, you'd be expecting big understeer and screeching everywhere, and quite a handful when you do these kind of fast cars on that. But in real life, it was easy. I remember coming into a hairpin, and the car, they glided around the corner, and it reacted to your inputs really, really well. And it was a fantastic, fun car to drive. I thought, this is easier in real life. Now, I know, obviously, and if you're doing proper racing, you've got to be fit, mentally strong to be able to kind of put up with it. But it's certainly, I think Gran Turismo at the moment is not really transferring the characteristics of the cars properly into the actual races and the different time trials and things like that. I think maybe it's because they use terrible tires, awful tires.
Yeah, I was going to say there's something about that. The doing. I've moaned about this too so often in phone calls and all sorts of stuff. He's sick of hearing this, but there's something going on with the feel and the feedback on the steering wheel. They're fiddling around with it all the time. When was it? When I first got Gran Turismo 7, this idiot here bought it for me so that I had it, and I went from Gran Turismo Sport, which was okay, but I never really got on with it. But I'd got the rig, and I'm the G29. It's all right, but it felt detached. I wasn't getting much feedback. Got into GT7, and it's like, what the hell is this thing? It feels like real steering. I love driving. This is the closest thing to actually owning a car that I'm going to have for a long time. Fantastic, and I was really enjoying it. And then an update came along, apparently after thousands of people went, it's not as good as GT Sport. I prefer GT Sport. So I think they dialed it to be more like GT Sport to suit all these 11-year-olds.
They did a complete physics rework, didn't they?
Complete physics rework, and it made it worse. I mean, they must have had a plan to make it more realistic. And I'm not saying, I agree with you, Neil, I'm not saying it's anything like really driving a car, but in terms of what I was actually enjoying, sat in this thing, what I call my car, laughingly, with the G29, the only feedback you get is the steering, because there's nothing else you got other than seeing the screen in front of you and hearing whatever sounds it kicks out. I was really loving it. And then it just went bland and all over the place. But then more recently, they've been fiddling around with it. And then there was a change, wasn't there? I'd not used it for a while because my seat broke. Managed to fix the seat. Got back on it. And one of these time trials was on Comfort Softs or Sports Softs or something like that. And I'm like, what's going on here? It's like electric steering in a Punto. Nothing at all. And there was no grip. You brake and it's like, the back end's doing this thing, and you're like, what the hell? I'm in a straight line out. How can it be doing this? Real cars don't do this. There's no... And then, like a week later, I was doing one on racing softs. Completely different world. It was like, oh, wow, feedback. Okay. Actual, maybe not the best, but actual feedback.
We never get to use soft, so that's one of my biggest problems.
I think that would transform a lot of the races. The soft tire is so much more fun.
It would be so much better. And
it's like for the time trials, they'll put it on sports hard. And on a time, if you were going to do a track day, I know obviously if you're on a budget, you might do a tire that's quite an endurance tire, but you still want to have something that's a bit softer to be able to kind of get on and do a proper track time, isn't it? So that you'd be a bit more competitive. But we keep getting like either comfort hards or whatever it is, or comfort mediums, or sports hard as well in the time trials, and they're not so good. I don't think it takes away from the fun and the feel of the game. It dumbs everything down.
It just seems a bit silly, doesn't it? That like this week is a 5-lap sprint race for Daily B, and they've put power tyres on, and again it comes back to that real driving simulator statement, because unless you're a strategist working for Ferrari about 3 seasons ago, nobody is going to put hard tyres on a car to do
all this weekend. Who was moaning about it? Was it Russell?
Yeah.
Russell. It's not fair putting hard tyres. Yeah,
it's silly. put the softs on. It's like qualifying on a hard tyre. You just wouldn't do it. So why are we? And it's not like anyone's benefiting from it, because if they change it to softs, everyone's on softs.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether they make it. I don't know. They're doing it because it's more challenging, or it's adding a bit of extra difficulty into it or something. I don't know.
Run out of ideas.
Nobody wants it. I think they run out of ideas about a year ago, because every daily race is just copied and pasted from 4 weeks before.
You watch like some of the
best
bigger ones that they go, well, now,
one.
okay, so we're doing this track, which we did 2 weeks ago, and the only thing that's different is they've got slightly different tyres. But
I think what happens is, what they do is they all get together on a Thursday, and they have their little board meeting, and they put their crayons down for a minute.
Wednesday night.
Yeah, and they go, right, over today's warm milk and biscuits, we will be discussing next week's daily races. And what we shall do is, let's just copy that week. And the worst one, I don't know if you guys remember, it was probably about maybe 5 or 6 weeks ago, possibly. We had a week of Group 3 at Monza with a mandatory pit stop.
Yeah, but you didn't have to change tyres, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's another thing. Pointless pit stops, that's another annoying thing. And then the following
That's not
week,
Formula One.
we had Group 3 at Monza just without the mandatory pit stop. So 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, they did
that.
that.
Same class.
It did have tuning.
With tuning. But just be more inventive.
All right, so hold on, let me get this right. You're talking daily races?
Yeah,
one
so
of them was
one week
Monza, but with a mandatory pit stop and no tuning.
And
Another one was the same race, but no pit stop, and you could do tuning.
But that was the following week. So basically, they just chose the same.
In the same class of car as well. Yeah. And that's another thing. Pointless pit stops need to be sacked off and set on fire, because there is absolutely no point. Because they put these strategies in, and they put you on hard tyres or a tyre compound that will, in certain cars, last the entirety of the race. Yeah. Like Le Mans a couple of weeks back, the 787B would do 5 laps or 6 laps, however much it was, I can't remember, on one set of tyres, and you didn't need to refuel. So why do we need to pit? It's pointless. Yeah. Anyway,
because that's
love Gran Turismo. It's great.
There was the Nürburgring F1 track. This is not a daily race or even a time trial. It's just one of the ones you can do, when you go to the track. And it was, I think it was PP 900 or 800 or something like that. And because I'm rubbish, what I try and do is, it's recommended cars, something crap. And then I'm going, no. So I went for like a Group 1 car. So I had as much overspeed as possible to get on the podium to get, to tick that box. And I really enjoyed it. And it was a really weird one, because it was 10 laps. You could pit stop. You could start on anything you liked, but it sucked fuel like it was a Veyron, and your tyres wore, and all this kind of stuff. And then at the end, sometimes it started to rain. Randomly. Just like last lap or so.
I think I know what race you mean, actually.
You know the one I mean? Yeah. I really enjoyed trying to get... And I did. I ended up winning it. I mean, it's against the AI, so it's not... And most people are going, oh, you struggled to win it. Yeah, I did. So I would normally come sixth, and then I would crash because the tyres were wrecked. And I ended up... It was like Matt does with his sort of learning circuits and learning... everything he needs to go as fast as he can. This was kind of like, I'm trying to get on the podium, so I've got to find out a way that I can use my rubbish skills to do so. And I ended up using, I think it was the R18, which of course has 4-wheel drive. I softened the suspension a bit so it didn't wear the tyres out anywhere near as much. It was a lot of fun, and I managed to just win it. But I was also trying, because you didn't have to do a pit stop, but what they did is you were using a lot of fuel and your tyres kept wearing. One of the options was to try and not do the pit stop when everybody else was, and I was trying that as well. Yeah. It made it fun for me.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was something you could
And,
fiddle with and find out it doesn't work, and it was different for different cars. You know, it's the R18 being a diesel. The power came in beautifully, so I stopped doing what I was doing in some of the cars where it just went with my ham-fisted lead foot and bad steering and all that kind of stuff. It was great. So I get what you mean. If everyone has to do the pit stop, regardless, it's taking away something that adds a layer of interest to me.
I just think they need to just be a bit more. They need to put more thought into it. And I think it was Larson actually that said to me a while back now that I think it's about 7 or 8% of Gran Turismo players play sport mode.
Yeah.
So it kind of makes me feel like, well, this is a very small percentage of what the game's about. So we're not going to pay any attention to it. And they don't really put any thought into it. We had Spa a few weeks back or a couple of months back with dynamic weather.
Yeah,
now,
that's right.
These races were, as in every daily race with Gran Turismo, they're at set times. So this one was on the hour, every hour. Now, if it rained on lap 5 of that race, or perhaps lap 4, and the rest of the race was wet, it would take you over an hour to finish the race, only by a couple of minutes. But because of that, when you got to the end of that race and you went back into daily races to join another one, you'd miss the entry point for the next race.
Wow.
So you had to wait an hour nearly until the next race started.
Yeah.
And
so it's obvious they've got no attention to detail to not even notice
that's
that.
the little things that they don't seem to take into consideration. And that frustrates me. Why we have to wait, I know that it's because they tried to make it a bit more realistic, but even now, you can qualify before you've even entered the race. You can go into qualify. You can qualify. You can pick the car. You can do as many laps as you want. When you click that green button, there's a 15-minute qualifying period. So you would assume that there's 16 people waiting to get into this race or waiting for this race to start. You can do your qualifying before you've got to that, so just start the race. Every other multiplayer platform game, you join in, you find a lobby, and it puts you into a game. Call of Duty, Fortnite, any other sort of F1 multiplayer, I think, is the same. You join in, you turn your PlayStation on, you start the game up, you go to multiplayer, you click join, done.
So it just populates it from the people who are waiting.
It populates it from the
starts.
server, and it puts everyone into the server, and that's it.
There's 15 people that could be in the race, and there's 40 people doing it. There'd be 2 races starting or whatever.
Yeah. But it's almost like the servers can't handle doing, because obviously then there would be multiple.
Maybe
and that's
maybe
it.
they're just. I mean, they're all trying to make money, aren't they? And they're all trying to find ways. It's like that description of Disney. That Bob Iger, that Toad, was given about your Star Warses and your Marvels and all this, and they call it IP mining. So they're not making films; they're mining the IP for money, and that sounds like what Phony Pony, as I like to call them, are doing. They've got this product that's been years in the making. They've put a lot of effort and time into, and I think I think they did. And now it's just, right, we need to suck this dry with as little expenditure as possible.
I think they need to be careful as well, because Assetto Corsa have partnered with a company or an organisation or whatever you want to call them, called SimGrid. So there are now
SimGrid, we know SimGrid.
There are now daily races available on ACC on the console. And ACC in racing or in terms of racing is in a different league to Gran Turismo. Completely so much better.
Even on console, it's a completely different style of game.
It's a completely different animal. And if this takes off and if it kicks in and people start, and it's a subscription service, but if it's going to allow for better racing, people will pay for it.
And then
And
you've
now
got
Hugh isn't SimGrid Dave Perel and
Yep,
Josh
David
Martin's
Perel.
thing. Yeah, we've had both of them on the.
Well,
We
he
love,
started
we love Dave Perel.
on console. He was sim racing on a console, and that's where he's kind of got the idea from. Apparently, he's gone, well, why do PC players get all the best things like iRacing, ACC on the PC, those and LFM? Why do they get all of the good stuff, and console gamers are left with?
Because I've got
nothing.
ACC on the PlayStation, and I enjoy it. It's like you say, it's a great driving experience. The feedback you get and the sound of the engines and the gearbox, the whine of a straight cut gearbox, all this kind of stuff is so good.
To it.
The sound of the gravel in the wheel arches.
I've recently. I don't use my PC. I use mainly. I got it mainly for streaming, but it's a fairly decent PC and it will run ACC quite happily.
Oh, okay.
And for the last couple of weeks or so, I've been playing ACC on the PC just off stream. I've done a few streams with it. I'm still getting to grips with it, but in terms of racing, in a different league, so much better. And I think that Gran Turismo or PD need to be careful because if it starts getting out and people are going, well, you know, and that the penalty system is completely different. It's far stricter, and people will go, well, you'll still get the people that play Gran Turismo because it's a more accessible game. You can pick it up and play it straight off the bat, whereas ACC is a bit more involving. But I think it will separate the people that want to have decent, clean races and the people that want to just bash people around and not care. And I think that's a good thing.
Yeah. It is. I was going to quickly ask Matt, because I know you've been in the conversation there, but I was going to ask a little bit about how you started. Oh, I thought I was frozen, but he just moved his head.
Leave the lad alone.
I need to get a thumbs up from Matt. Make sure he's all right.
Don't be horrible.
And that, but it's how, because you started at a similar time.
How did clapper?
Neil. Because Neil started about October time last year, wasn't it? Maybe September, October last year.
October, yeah.
October. So you were quite close to that as well, because I remember you watching some of our racing streams, and you were saying you were about to get started and get going. So how have you found becoming a YouTube streamer and building your channel? What's it been like?
It's just really good fun, actually. I've got a bit of an eye. I saw the people streaming Gran Turismo. I had it on the PS5, and I just thought one day I'm going to get a camera and capture card and all the other bits and pieces that you need for streaming. We're just going to start a channel up. So I thought really that when I first started, no one's going to really care. No one's going to really watch somebody sat in the spare room on a sim rig playing Gran Turismo. But it just sort of started to go one day, and then I started, because when I first started, I started doing videos. So I was doing daily race videos. So I'd do like 2 or 3 daily races and make like a 10, 20-minute video. I mean, some of them were even like 25, 30 minutes, some of the videos I used to make. But then I thought, well, if I start streaming the daily races, it's going to save me so much time making these videos because they took a while to make.
Yeah.
So if I stream, I can do more daily races and I don't need to make videos anymore because I can just do daily races on stream. So I started streaming, and that's when the channel sort of really started to go, when I started streaming. And one day, I think it was a daily race C on Fuji International Speedway, and there was a chap at the front of the field called Not That Quick in there. And I thought, okay. So,
oh, yeah, I remember that.
He's running I think it was about November time last year. So
was I winning?
Is up at the front somewhere, I think.
Yes,
top two, somewhere around there. And
that's a very rare occurrence, that is.
And I saw that he had a YouTube channel. So I remember, I think I was at about 130 subs around about that point. And I sort of I went onto your channel and I popped in. I said hello, left a comment and whatnot. And that's really sort of from there when I started to get a bit into the community. And since then, we've just sort of gone from there, really. And hopefully it's still going to go because really enjoying it, meeting new people, being on Gran Turismo. And I know that on my streams, I do kind of go on a bit about bits that I know about F1, and I'll kind of drop little bits. I think Friday night I was streaming and I was leading a train of like 6 cars and all top of this, and I just sort of thought in the back of my head, Gilles Villeneuve at Harama in 1970, whatever it was, when he was leading with was it Rene Arnoux, Didier Pironi, all behind him, which I used to watch on the Murray's Magic Moments VHS. In the couple of my little F1 gubbins, but so we sort of come out with like random bits on the streams we just sort of think of randomly.
That's really good though.
And so I've got quite a few bits. I think I've got somewhere I've got F1 96 on VHS, and I've watched it that many times that the theme tune when Jean Alesi and Gerhard Berger are launching the Benetton in Taormina in Sicily, and they're ripping the cover off the car on the big stand thing, and Flavio Briatore's there, and I think Gerard Depardieu, the French actor's there as well. I've literally memorised the whole thing, and that music is ingrained into my head for life because I've pretty much watched it so many times.
That's quite interesting because I've got a few older videos. In fact, I need to try and put them onto a memory stick or whatever. Because I've got like some Senna videos from 92 and 93, some of the Mansell ones from about the same era. And I think I might even have the 96 Damon Hill F1 review. And I thought if you see there's a very dodgy bit at the end of Damon Hill's 1996 Formula One review video. You go right the way past the end credits. And then they do a song. Now, of course, because finally Damon Hill had beaten Michael Schumacher, they were in obviously this was a kind of outtake that wasn't supposed to be in the main program. Otherwise, it would have finished Damon's career, certainly nowadays. And what he does is they're all in a pub or they're in the bar somewhere at the track or somewhere or a local place after the race in Suzuka, wherever he won the title in '96, and he's doing the Dad's Army song. But replacing the certain German person with Schumacher's name at the end of it. And of course, they're all singing this big rowdy song because they're obviously all quite drunk. And poor old Michael Schumacher is sitting right next to him listening to this. So I thought, if ever we could catch that, if that was ever put on TV or put on, that's the end of Damon Hill at Sky, the end of Damon Hill anywhere. Because if he mentions anything about racism or anything like that, he's finished. He's got someone will find this little clip that he did from 1996, and that's his GP commentary life over. But I would remember thinking, because nowadays, you're not allowed to say anything, even remotely, that may have been a joke 20 years ago or 30 years ago. But this was no holds barred, and that was actually on the official F1 review, which I thought was even more kind of crazy. But the old F1 reviews were brilliant. I mean, they were
the 96 one. I mean, I've watched it so many times that the VHS is practically broken. But I remember all of it. I remember at the start with the very opening scene of the jet plane landing in Nice, and Michael Schumacher saying that he's just joined Ferrari from Benetton. But Ferrari weren't really there with their car. I think John Barnard, the designer, hadn't really designed them a good car, the F310. Michael's saying that, we're going to struggle at the start of the year, but we'll be winning races by whenever. And of course, he absolutely demolished them, I think, at Spain in the rain.
That's right.
And when he beat JB, I remember Damon spinning off at Monza when he hit the tyre barriers.
That's right. Yeah, the chicane.
JB's wheel coming off at Suzuka. Damon, I remember all of it. I remember it so vividly. The whole thing is just permanently ingrained in my head. I mean, I was kind of a Schumacher fan growing up.
Well, I think especially when he drove for Ferrari, because you thought, oh, come on, this is the final time there's a chance we're going to see Ferrari winning. And I remember watching the Australian race for the title in 2000 when he won it, and I had a mate of mine over from Australia, and we were up at the crack of whatever hour it was watching it. And it was just brilliant when he finally won, because they were some that year 2000 was so close between Hakkinen and Schumacher as well. It was very, very close. But I always remember Murray Walker when Nigel Mansell won in '92, and in Hungary, and he says he's second in the race, but he's a world champion of 1992. And then he crosses the line, and then seemingly when he was up on the podium, Senna said to him, when they were doing the champagne, he says, "Now you know what the feeling is like and why I'm such a bastard in the races. And he whispered this as he was going on the podium with the whole thing. Don't worry, we're after 9. We should be all right. That's the only time I'll ever swear.
9 o'clock somewhere.
But that was the thing. So there was so much more in the interviews and more of the kind of character of the F1, and I think that's what F1 misses today, even in the setup of the teams. Because the old days you had some really amazing team bosses. I mean, you look at like Frank Williams and
Flav.
Flavio, because he's back. He's in his mid-70s. He looks like he's
photographs of a fat, grey-haired, balding Lothario on a beach with 10 dolly birds around him. Flav. I mean, he's just. He would be imprisoned now just for being alive and breathing. Just. I mean, they talk at that. What would people say as a youth? Oh, a bit of a character. A bit of a character.
But you had
Bernie going out with Naomi Campbell or somebody like that. At one point,
pervert.
Twice. Yeah. Oh, absolutely, completely. But of course,
and he hated Johnny Herbert. He hated all the Brits. He hated the British drivers.
And they drove for him.
Yeah.
Tom Walkinshaw. You had Flavio and Tom who basically they owned pretty much. I think they had Ligier, Arrows, Footwork, whatever they were called.
And Minardi. Remember what was the name thing in Minardi? Yeah, I mean, Minnows but they were all incredible.
Stoddart, what was his name? Paul Stoddart?
Yeah, Paul Stoddart. Yeah.
Paul Stoddart, Minardi. What a guy. Yeah. Do you remember that? Oh, sorry, you're geeking me out now, because I've been watching Formula 1 for all that time, but it's like that bit was the bit that got me really into Formula 1, and I keep all these details. I'm really jealous, Matt, that you can remember all these things, because all these little details, when you say them, I'm like, yeah, that's right, I remember that, but I can't recall them because my brain's screwed.
Do you remember 40? Anyone, a team called 40?
40, yeah.
Yellow cars, Brazilian backers, Pedro Diniz, Roberto Moreno.
Yeah.
And then
Pedro Diniz.
I think what happened I think somebody bought them or something in '96, and it all fell through, and then they suddenly disappeared. Like
they'll buy a team because they're rich and they think, oh, I've got loads of money, it's fine, and then they find out exactly how much money it takes or took to run an F1 team at all. Never mind a good one. My favourite new team was Stewart Grand Prix. I mean, I'm a big fan of Jackie Stewart anyway, because do you remember when BAR came in? So Jacques Villeneuve had won his championship, and it came in. He's had big shares in it. It had British American Tobacco money. They had so much money it hurt. And they were coming and going, we'll be winning races by the end of the year because we're amazing. And it took them 10 years to win a race. It's like, yep. Jackie Stewart came in and he goes, it'll be 5 years before we get points. This is Formula 1. I've been around this for like most of my life now, and I know how it works. And then we got points by the end of the year, and he's just like, oh, I love you so much. And he's crying his eyes out, hugging everybody, because it's like... And he was like such an amazing team principal with his son, obviously, but...
His son went through cancer as well at the same time.
Yeah, well, that's why they stopped it, really. That and he could see the writing on the wall in where that manufacturers were needing to come in. So he had a chance to sell it to Ford, so he sold it to Ford. And they did what Ford do best, and they employed a committee of 5,000 people, ruined everything, and we got Jaguar. Great idea. Anyway, they took a very successful small outfit that was punching way above their weight. I mean, Jackie Stewart... He is such an amazing businessman, such a good persuader and communicator. And this guy's severely dyslexic. This guy was told all through his life in school and everything that he was thick. I mean, seriously stupid. And at the age of 30, he finds out there's this thing called dyslexia. He's severely dyslexic. His son, Mark, is severely dyslexic. He started charities about dyslexia and all this kind of stuff. He's an incredible communicator. He had the second highest sponsorship of any team on the grid. Because he went around, he had HSBC, he had Malaysia, the country, sponsoring his team. Yeah. How the hell do you do that? You turn up to a parliament and go, right, I think it'd be really good if you put your name on the side of our car. What a guy. But he was like a dad. I could just imagine, you get like Ron Dennis, who goes around... What are they used to go... ITV, when they had the Formula 1, their website was actually quite good. They had some really funny stuff going on there, and they called Jean Todt Mr. Toad. Ron Dennis was called Ron Ron with his he always wore those bomber jackets, and they kind of portrayed him as this guy going around bullying people like an enforcer. You've got to do as you're told. You know, in McLaren at that time, everyone was hot desking. You couldn't have an office. You couldn't have your desk. You couldn't have your own bit of creativity. You were allowed to have one photograph on that desk, which you had to take away at the end of the day. You walked in there, and it was like being surrounded by dementors. It sucked the life out of you. And they wonder why Adrian Newey left under Ron Dennis. Because there's nothing.
But then Frank Williams at Williams, you had Patrick Head. I mean, amazing designers, amazing.
Dodgy as hell. I mean, the things they got up to was so dodgy. The great Frank Williams. You listen to Damon Hill and Nigel Mansell talking about the great Frank Williams.
Well, in terms of financially, they were.
And why Adrian Newey left them is because they kept going behind his back and over his head and just ignoring his contract and doing whatever they liked. The bombastic.
I think there are still some characters though in today. I do think that if you're a team boss, I mean, I always think like the one who started Mercedes, who now is the
Ross Brawn.
I mean, you've got to admire Ross Brawn from being
read
able to
the book Total Competition, find out what really happened. He was outmaneuvered by Niki Lauda and Toto Wolff.
Toto Wolff.
He was outmaneuvered, and it makes me so angry because I wasn't a Schumacher fan, I wasn't a Ferrari fan or a Benetton fan, but I really like Ross Brawn. Ross Brawn's seriously a man of integrity and ability. Same kind of thing I was about to say about Jackie Stewart. His ability to manage people is incredible. The reason why that team was so successful and has stopped being successful is because there's no one there that can bring the whole team together. There was a chassis department and an engine department, and they hated each other. They wouldn't talk to each other. Every morning before he did anything, he would spend an hour walking around the entire factory talking to everybody. Whether it was his department or not. Building relationships, learning about them, getting them all together. It wasn't just Schumacher that put that team, around him. It was Ross Brawn's incredible ability. Jackie Stewart was like a dad to everyone. People wanted to give their best to him. It wasn't about the pay and the winning. It was like... We've been saying earlier, there was another motivation that made them want to do more. And then, so the reason why Mercedes had all those years of success has got bugger all to do with Toto Wolff. I'm sorry, it was all Ross Brawn. He put it together. I remember when Lewis Hamilton went to Mercedes and they're all going, he's nuts. At the time, he's changed his story now, but at the time he was saying the reason he went there was because of Ross Brawn. And Ross Brawn talked him into it. Now it's because Niki Lauda and Toto Wolff talked him into it. That seems to have changed in the last 15 years or something. But it's like they've written him out because they sidelined him, got rid of him, and they wrote him out.
Yeah.
Oh, anyway.
But the state of today's F1 is, it's become very much more computerized. It's kind of it has lost a bit of its character. There's no doubt. I think the noise, this not having the noise is for me.
Oh, that's
it does. Yeah. They're a bit.
I went to an F1 race the other day. I turned my Hoover on.
They're a bit louder than they were. They're a bit louder than they were, but they're just. And I know
Beyonce can be put on very loud, but I don't think she's any good as a musician. Come on, volume is not.
Yeah, no, it has to have.
Come here, you.
Proper sound
sweet Scottish cranky.
Let's not get Rue onto the film, the F1 editing either. But it was that
all the film rush. So Lars was just saying that he didn't. He saw the documentary about Hunt and Lauda, but the problem is most people have seen the film Rush, which I don't like. I think the guy that played Niki Lauda, and Niki Lauda is another one of my heroes. I love Niki Lauda, incredible guy. Andreas Niki Lauda, so he's got the same name as me, basically. They were actually really good friends, and the film, oh God, I like Ron Howard, but he oversimplified. He screwed up the Apollo 13 film as well. It's just like, I'm a big fan of Jim Lovell, and I've been to NASA and I've seen the fifth from last space shuttle launch, and it was incredible. And then you get this film where apparently they're so unprofessional and crap that they all cry, well, we don't want that man, and we want this man. It's not bullshit. It's not good enough. The guy actually wrote the handbook for NASA on emergency procedures in piloting the command vehicle. But they're trying to make out in the film that he's rubbish and he's not experienced. He was one of the best pilots there, and they all said it.
In terms of,
God, gosh.
They did the same to Senna as well. They made out
the documentary.
They made out that Senna and Prost had this really toxic relationship and they hated each other, and it just wasn't the case. I remember watching an interview with Prost at Goodwood a couple of years back, and he basically said, "I'm not a fan of the movie whatsoever. I didn't have the relationship that was depicted in the movie at all." The guy heads the charity that Senna set up. He's the the word?
Nina. Yeah, the kind of
the Brazilian housing children one. I forget what it's called, but he's the chairman.
Yeah,
and but it's film, isn't it? That it's done for.
Oh, you're talking about Balestra? Is it Balestra, the French?
No,
sorry, I just heard this.
The Brazilian chap who runs charities.
Oh, right, okay, sorry. I thought you were talking about what went on between them on the track and all that kind of stuff. Because
that was very
Balestra was the
Balestra was just an absolute tyrant.
Jean-Marie, he was.
I think that in the situation where a Frenchman shoots anybody else, the other people just got in the way maliciously of the bullet, because poof. Banana fromage.
The right decision is my decision. Okay.
Yes, then you insult me. I'm French. That is why I've got this outrageous accent. Bit of Monty Python for you there. Thanks.
No, but they were. That was a great thing in the old days. You could actually see from the videos. You could see into those meetings, which were really interesting, and that gave you the kind of intensity of what they were going through. Remember that one where Senna speaks up.
Inside the steward's office as well at one point.
Yeah. Now, Larson made an interesting comment here that Chris Hemsworth was not liked by the Hunt family, but Daniel Bruhl, who played Lauda, became a friend of the family.
Did a really good job of that.
Yeah, and he was in a recent one about the Lancia. Wasn't it Lancia versus Audi? There was a kind of rally film. I haven't seen that yet.
Oh, I've not seen that.
It's really good. Really good.
It looks really
good.
Is
it? Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I love the Lancia thing that they did on Top Gear. How they managed to get it qualified, and they had to move all the cars when they were having lunch from one yard to the other, and they got all their drivers to move them so that the FIA came around and they thought
they had to have made a certain amount of
like
cars,
1,000 cars or something, wasn't there, or 600 cars, and they only had 200.
They didn't have the money for it. Oh, that's fantastic.
They couldn't build them all.
So it was hilarious. They got them all drunk in a pub, and whilst they were getting sloshed, they moved all the cars into a different car park.
Oh, that is so Italian. That is a perfectly Italian thing to do. I love Italy. I mean, I love Germany. I used to live there, but wow. That's just something.
It's hilarious.
I used to go to Italy quite a lot because my dad was a truck driver back in the day. So when I was in most school holidays, I'd just go to Italy with my dad in his truck. So we'd leave the yard, as it were, on the Monday, whenever it was, sometimes Sunday, with our steel plate that we used to deliver to Verona and all around there. Get there for Wednesday morning-ish. We'd tip it, aka deliver it. We go to round that area to get granite marble. So we'd have granite marble and A-frames. So it used to stick up like that on a flatbed trailer, 50 ton of it, near enough, on chains and whatnot. Bring that back over Mont Blanc, back into France, up through France to Calais, back across. And we used to go London, Manchester, or wherever the customer was. Used to we went to Croatia once with one of the trips that we had. Wow. We went to. I remember.
Did you ever sing going over the Alps? We are the Self-Preservation Society, because that would make it perfect in my eyes.
Not quite, but I know what you mean with that one, because that is one of my favourite ever films as well.
It's a superb film. Again? This is. See, I wonder, Neil, whether Phony Pony have, a bit like Formula One, been invaded by Hollywood people. because Hollywood people also
possibly.
can't come up with any new ideas. They keep
No.
remaking old ones. So, I
Yeah,
mean, they've been
that's
doing it for years, but now it's like on a whole new level, isn't it? You know,
Yeah.
remakes
They
of
just remake
remakes.
Yeah.
So, you know,
But it's like song. It's like
the
songwriting,
Italian
isn't
Job,
it? You can
but it's
run out
in
of stuff.
Las Vegas.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's quite funny
Yeah.
because I think back in like 96, 97, we used to go on holiday to Richmond in North Yorkshire, and my dad met a filmmaker there, film crew, cameraman, and my dad that he liked to talk to people quite a lot, and I'm talking like hours and hours and hours and hours and more hours and more hours and more hours. Anyway,
I can associate.
They got talking, and then he made it. So in the drawer somewhere, in here somewhere, I've got a video called "An Italian Job." So it's An Italian Job, not The Italian Job, and it's a film of my dad from '97 going to Italy.
Wow, that's really good, though. That's really good. Of course, Rue, you went to the German Grand Prix. That was it in 2000?
2001. It was the last
2001.
one on the original circuit, the proper circuit.
At Hockenheim.
That was a hell of a weekend. Oh my goodness, it was so hot that we were getting sunburnt through our clothes. We had to take 2 or 3 towels each, to put one across our legs so that it didn't burn the top of our legs, over our shoulders, and then we had to tuck it into caps like your French Foreign Legion, you know, just to stop us from being sunburnt. But the sound, oh my God. Yeah, we were at the Ostkirch, so the very far corner, and we had to walk. So if you imagine there's the track like that, we had to walk on backwards along that side, like I'm going to say the west side, through the forests. Now, Hockenheim's not far from where I used to live, so I'm kind of used to the area. I used to live in near Mannheim. You're walking along, and you've got the helicopters coming over the top, and all you can hear the helicopters, but even though it's through trees and it's about half a mile away, is this orchestra of V10s. Wow! And even then, I could tell when the McLaren Mercedes was going past, because it had this unusual howl.
Yeah.
It's a bit like the V10 that's in the Porsche Carrera GT.
Yeah,
it's got this sort of howl to it. Oh my goodness! But then you sat in these bleachers with sausages, so literally Brötchen and Bockwurst.
Love a sausage.
They've got all these things where you can buy these Bockwurst with onions and all sorts of stuff, and you're sitting there, and then you hear this coming at you. And then they appear through the trees, round this corner, whoop, off again. Yeah. And that's with you had to use the earplugs that they gave you.
Yeah.
But it's like the space shuttle. It wasn't a sound. It vibrated your entire body. It wasn't a sound. It was. And you just sat there going, wow. And then you get the incredible race. I mean, there was also Formula 3000, which sounded amazing, those V8s, and F3, which sounded like modern F1 cars, you know, vacuum cleaners. Awful. But they're all nuts. I had a theory that there's like 3 types of F3 driver. There's 1/3 of them are actually quite talented. Then 2/3 of them are rubbish, but half of those think they're brilliant. And the first half of the race is the 1/3 that are rubbish, but think they're brilliant, overstretching themselves and smashing into everybody. There was literally the Jim Clark curves, because you got the big screen there, and like the first lap, and all you got was and cars flipping in the air as the nutters sort of banzaied down the outside like they're on Gran Turismo. Wee-hee! Taking themselves and a bunch of people out. And when enough idiots had been destroyed, along with the poor sods that just were in the way, then it calmed down and it became a race. It was hilarious. It's so funny.
The thing is, the Hockenheim race was very short, wasn't it? It was literally like an hour and 20 minutes because it was so quick. Because it's such a long circuit, isn't it? And it was only like 44
Some of the
laps,
fastest speeds in Formula 1 down those straights. And that's with the chicanes. I mean, the chicanes never used to be there. I stood at the headstone where Jimmy Clark died, which is always quite emotional. Even now, I'd start
But 2001, I was also at Hockenheim as an 11-year-old. It's quite funny.
You were there?
It's quite funny how all these things come together. Yeah.
No way! That's fantastic. Where were you sitting? Were you in the grandstands or?
Well, we were actually on our way to Stuttgart in Germany with some steel plates, and the motorway that we used to go. I can't remember what it was. The A5 or something like that.
I can't remember which one it is. But, it goes past.
It goes past Hockenheim. And
it's on the west side of the Rhine as it goes straight past, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, so we pulled in this parking area and went for a walk through the woods, and all of a sudden this great big massive grandstand comes out, and I says, "Where are we?" And he says, "Go up." So I get a bit.
That's no problem. You should see me. Ask Helen if she's still there. I'm reading books to her. I can't finish reading the story because it's like when you're ready. When you're ready, buddy. When you're ready.
It takes me back. It takes me back. So I've got photos of me on there when I was a kid.
Yeah. It was a weird place because it didn't look. It's like you think it's going to be this huge stadium style thing, but what I remember of it is that, like you say, we got off the train because I was staying in Karlsruhe down the road with my then best friend who lived there for a bit while he was working, and we got on the train. You get off at the Hockenheim train station in the village, small town of Hockenheim. You walk through the town, and then you come to this, like you said, the Autobahn went past the circuit, but you couldn't. You had to get off a little bit later and then come back in. Is that what you remember?
Yeah, so we went up the stairs onto the grandstand. I think it was a week after the Grand Prix, so all the tyre marks and that were all over the track.
Oh, this was just after. Oh, right. Oh, okay. I thought you were actually at the thing itself. Oh, okay.
Just after the Grand Prix, but yeah,
you can go there now and walk there. There's a channel that I used to watch called Forgotten Weapons. That's something else.
Forgotten Circuits. Yeah,
Forgotten Circuits. It's a Dutch fella. Unfortunately, he's got this English guy who can't pronounce a single foreign name. Because for some reason he thought his narration wasn't very good when it was brilliant. I thought it's like listening to Arkies. His English was excellent, and he was really good at pronouncing all the names of all these weird. And he goes all over Europe and sometimes other parts of the world on holiday, videoing the old circuits. So, like he does one on the Südschleife. So you got the Nordschleife, but it used to the whole Nürburgring used to be something like a 25-mile circuit made up of two circuits, a smaller one and the big one, the Green Hell, which met in the middle, but they built the modern F1 circuit over that bit, so the old circuit disappeared. But it's all, part of it's a car park, some of it's the road, some of it's like a walkway, just like a walk in the woods you can go down, and he goes down showing you all this stuff. And he's done one on the old Hockenheim GP circuit, and it's so overgrown. You can't believe
it's
cars.
like a forest.
It's a forest, it's been reclaimed by the forest that was all around it. You can't believe people were doing like 240 miles an hour up there. Because it's like, what the hell? But when you come to the place, it doesn't look much. When you're walking in, it didn't look much, and then you get to the grandstand and you've got this amazing circuit there. But that was when, I think Schumacher, did he crash out in the first lap? Somebody crashed into him, and then his brother blew up. And was it won by Montoya or something?
There was a
like
great race a few years ago when Hamilton won. Now, did he not win from 14th on the grid? It was like 2017 or earlier, and it was everything had gone against him in qualifying. He'd really struggled to get his car on the grid, anywhere up the grid. He started 14th. I think it was, and then it was a kind of wet, dry race. There was a few issues as they did the race, and then Hamilton won from 14th on the grid and he got past. It was Vettel. I think in the last few laps I think Vettel went off, or he managed to get past him, and he ended up winning. Yeah, Vettel crashed. Yeah, DTR. That was an awesome race. But it's like Silverstone. It has this incredible character. Hockenheim. It's a pity they don't use it now, because that'd be quite a thing.
Oh, it's the modern circuit's a pale imitation. I mean, it's all right. Yeah. You've still got the grandstand part of it, but
the old one is so much better.
Out into the woods. Oh well, no, No.
Can I tell you the story of my father was overtaken, as many have been overtaken by Jim Clark, but officially he was actually overtaken by Jim Clark by way back in the 60s, because he was a doctor in Duns, and of course Jim Clark was based at Churnside, at a farm near Churnside, but he came into Duns all the time, and he met him on a few occasions, just at like the Duns show and different things that he did actually attend, but he was once driving up near Carfrey Mill in Edinburgh, which is kind of towards about maybe 10 miles out of Edinburgh. And my father was driving a normal Ford Cortina at the time. I think like a Mark I Cortina, or some car similar to that. And he was overtaken by Jim Clark in his Lotus Cortina. And the thing is, my father, thinking that he was a doctor, he's a good driver, he has to do night calls and get around, quite quickly. He thought he hated being overtaken by anybody. But there was nothing he was going to do here, because the Jim Clark went, so he was already gone by the time. Yeah, but he recognised him because in those days they didn't have headrests on a lot of cars, so you could see straight in. The glass was different, the whole thing. And he said, "Yep, I've been overtaken by Jim Clark."
Your dad probably was a good driver, but it's Jim Clark.
He was
Jimmy Clark. It's
scary.
It's like when Senna died. It's a similar sort of thing that everyone was going, "Oh my God, this can't happen to Senna." Yeah. It's Senna.
Yeah.
Senna doesn't, and it was the same with Jimmy Clark. There was all these people going. I've seen so many interviews of the people at the time going, "If Jimmy Clark can die,
then
But there's not a chance in hell that was a mistake he made. It just isn't."
Well, people
thought cars being made out of cardboard.
I watched it was a bit.
There was a documentary about it, wasn't it?
Well, it was on yesterday.
Yeah.
It's to do with Senna, but it was an interesting. I can't remember who it was that said it, but they had they basically were talking about how he died, and they were showing a whole segment on it. And those of you that have watched the race will know, but the lap before the crash was behind a safety car, and this safety car was an Opel Cavalier.
It was like an SRI or something,
and it was doing ridiculously low speeds, and they lost all of the tyre pressures. So he's come into Tamburello and he's just bottomed out completely because there's no pressure in the tyres, and it's just planed him straight off.
I was an interesting thing about that as well recently. That's only come to light that the person, because the onboard video footage was quite crackly and quite difficult. It was very grainy. It was very difficult to really spot anything properly in any kind of focus on those laps that Senna did. But seemingly the lap before, because what they were doing, they were analysing all his practice sessions, qualifying the whole thing, and seemingly something happened, I think maybe in the morning practice when they went out, and there was a difference between the way he was using more steering angle than when the actual race started, and they reckon this was this issue that it was maybe a steering column problem, because when you see the last lap, and actually you could tell that he was actually turning the wheel more than he had been in previous laps, which meant obviously if there's something snapped or something was happening, he wasn't going to have the same control as he obviously went off and hit the wall. Of course, as well, it was a concrete wall on the fastest bit of the. Even if you think if it just had tires there or something, he would have probably bounced off, and it would have been, he probably would have been okay because he didn't have a broken bone in his body. The only thing that it was the hit from the head of the helmet with the suspension.
Wasn't it a similar kind of speed when he hit that wall as Schumacher had at Silverstone that time when he got a broken leg? About 160.
Because
Schumacher had the tyres.
That was into Stowe.
I remember that's when I was watching everything religiously, and I've never been one of these people that laughed at that kind of. There was a lot of people that were laughing because Schumacher had this. And Murray Walker quite rightly was like, "Well, come on." This is
I remember that.
No matter how
that was a crazy atmosphere.
The kind of fans you don't want. This is the problem. It's where phrases like fanboy and hater and all this kind of stuff come from that I despise those. They're just lazy insults for people that don't want to do what we're doing now, which is have a really nice chat about things. Like I say, I was never a Schumacher fan. I didn't really like him. It's like I don't really like Max. But bloody hell, both of them can drive and they're really good at what they do.
But I also think you don't really get to find out what they're really like. I think a lot of people who have met these drivers in real life have a very different opinion and say actually they're really nice, decent people.
Schumacher had a big problem. Schumacher's problem was he was speaking his second language.
Yeah.
And I could see it because I've seen interviews with him in German, and he's a really funny guy. He's actually quite a relaxed fella. So he had two problems. Well, let's say I look at it. He had three problems. He was using his second language. The persona he had on the track, a bit like Max, was willing to push some boundaries, go a bit too far. And I'm being polite about it. I'm not going to say he was a cheating this, that, and the other, but he definitely pushed it, you know. So that meant that he was having to deal with people that are loosely called journalists, trying to get a soundbite like they do, always on his back. Now, if you have 100 people come at you again and again and again and again and again, constantly trying to... It's like Quentin Tarantino talking about violence. He's sick and tired of doing it. He's lost all sense of humour about talking about it because it's not funny anymore. We've dealt with this, you know. And I think Schumacher was in that problem. So I think he was actually a pretty decent guy, but on the track, it's like you listen to Max talking. I mean, I was just for this weekend, because I didn't watch the race, I watched the highlights and then watched a couple of the things, listened to a few podcasts I listened to on the race. I don't know if you heard of them, that kind of thing.
Oh, yeah.
And he's so complimentary to George Russell and Lewis Hamilton and Lando, and he's really level in the way he talks about these things. He said, you know, any one of us could have won it. There was a lot of luck involved. And all this. I mean, he did a flawless race. Honestly, he just doesn't seem to make mistakes. But he was really humble about it. And he talks about the pressure, how it can affect people and all this kind of stuff. Really understanding, very complimentary. Not the arrogant guy that you'd think he would be in that position.
I think that's the case for a lot of drivers, isn't it? Because, I mean, I've spent a good amount of time talking to Hamilton.
Oh, have you? Oh, okay.
And he is portrayed by the media in a very different light to how he is as a person. Completely different. In real life, he is an absolute... What time will be on?
It's 17 minutes past 10.
Definitely past Hawkshead. Bell end is the word that I would use to describe him, because he's
in real life?
Absolute moron. Yeah. And by the media, he's all, you know, carbon footprint, blah 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 blah.
Well, I think
proper
anyway, but
tree hugging peace hippie. But in real life, I think, and I can't blame him 100% for it, because, you know, he's been kind of shoehorned into this position from a very young age. And I think it got to his head earlier on. I think he's probably mellowed out a little bit later on in his career. I think he's probably calmed down a bit. But at the start, he was very... when did I meet him? We're probably going back 2013, maybe 2014.
Okay.
And I spoke to him and his dad at the time was throwing a wobbly because he had to walk to a certain part of the circuit, and somebody had misplaced his golf cart. So his dad was throwing a full-on wobbly because he had to walk. And bearing in mind, I mean, it was only a 10-minute walk at best. Yeah. They didn't want to do that. His attitude, he just came across as... and it was in an area where they were... Yeah, and they were holding drivers, and we'd set up... Where I used to work in the Experience Centre, they were holding drivers in this area as kind of a holding pen, and they would be sent out to do press interviews and things. And within this kind of area, they had these two PlayStations set up with an F1 game. I can't remember which one it was. And some of the drivers were doing demonstrations, and they were chatting to various different people. And I just remember that there was Alonso, Hamilton, Button, and one other. Can't remember who it was now. But I just remember all of them being really down to earth and just genuinely nice people, and they were coming across exactly as they would do if you spoke if they were on the telly.
Okay.
But Hamilton's personality or persona was completely different. And I've said this to a few people over the years. They've got this, Hamilton's amazing. There's no denying. He's a 7-time world champion. So
I think the Hollywood's got to him. I think that influence of
he's just
he's
very
a lot more honest in his early days. Or just
to me, he kind of embodies the things that I don't like about the sport. The whole the kind of Hollywoodism of it.
Yeah,
you see all these other drivers the glam. Yeah, and every other driver, they turn up in sponsor T-shirts and whatever. He'll turn up dressed as a Quality Street, and it just
I know he does.
It just says it all, doesn't it?
Strange things.
And everyone else turns up.
And the thing is, you can always tell that. Yeah, but you can tell that the commentators are wanting to say, "What the heck is he wearing?" You know what? But they can't dare say anything.
And then he's scooting around on a little, and obviously, he sacked her off now because she's obviously, she's boring, but he's scooting around on his little scooter, and his lapdog's carrying his bag around for him and running alongside him. Well, who do you think you are, you jumped up little twerp? Just get in the bin.
Yeah, I haven't got actually much time for him at all, especially with all the idiocy. Another multi-millionaire victim just does my head in. Whereas, you get, well, put it this way, the ones that I was a fan of was David Coulthard. I liked Mika Hakkinen as well, mostly because he just had this kind of wry smile and this kind of Finnish attitude I loved. He had this wry smile, little cheeky look in his eyes, and he'd come out with something, this incredibly dry sense of humour. So funny.
Yeah, Hakkinen was great.
Hakkinen was just so funny. But DC,
DC
and Jacques Villeneuve, people keep going on about Jacques Villeneuve, and it was on something on this podcast I was listening to last night, where they were saying, he keeps saying no one's paying attention to him for 10 minutes, so he comes out with stuff. All probably very true, but both of those people put an enormous amount of effort into their fans. Because they realised what side they're... And I actually have seen... Jacques Villeneuve refused to do interviews because he hated the journalists because they came out with crap. Which I think is kind of ironic with the image he's got now.
He did it in Canada 2 weeks ago. He slated Ricardo on Sky.
Oh, big time.
Yes, this is what they were talking about.
Yeah, brilliant. It was hilarious, and they didn't really know what to say.
He's like, why is he even still here? Wow.
But he's always had that thing of being someone that says things nobody else would. Like James Hunt used to say what nobody else would. So is he being someone that wants attention, or is he just being brutal, which he always has been, and mad as a box of frogs? Because he used to rate his crashes. Do you remember that other one? And it was him and was it Zonta?
Yeah, Zonta.
Him
huge
in VAR. They were at Spa back in the days where you had to lift. Going at the bottom of Radion. Okay. And don't start me on the names of the.
I'm good at that one, Drew.
You are. When they call Radion the corner at the top, which in my commentaries, when I used to do the commentaries, I call the corner at the top because it hasn't got a name. And Radion is actually the hill because it's French for steep hill. And Eau Rouge is the red water, which is the stream at the bottom, and it's the left-hander. So you go round the left-hander, which is Eau Rouge, and it's a dip. And back in those days, now it's flat, isn't it? It's all flat in the F1 cars. In those days, if you didn't lift, and it used to bottom out and bounce. And because Jacques Villeneuve was several screws loose.
I remember this.
Do you remember this? And he's like, Zonta did it. They both did it. And it's like, off. And that was a 9 out of 10 crash, that was. And you're like, what? Let's do it again. He loved it. But he came out and said, look, because he was getting paid a huge amount of money at the time. And he said, look, I always, they were asking him, you always go and spend time with the fans. Why is that? He goes, I get paid an enormous amount of money to do the best job in the world that I love doing. because of those people over there, not because of you, I'm off. And he went over there, started signing things, chatting with them for ages. DC was the same. And DC was trained, incidentally, in all of that by Jackie Stewart. Because he was, F3 team was Paul Stewart Racing. And they had a program where they trained all of their drivers up in getting sponsorship, media, dealing with people, everything. It was a full training because Jackie Stewart's awesome.
Yeah.
And or Paul Stewart. I mean, it was Paul Stewart's team. But they're the ones I like. And I used to get so annoyed with people. Oh, he's too much of a gentleman. He's not much of a racer. Now you get this thing where. He's in McLaren. He's the number 2 in McLaren because Ron Dennis had a hard-on for Mika Hakkinen. He was like, he's like a baby. And DC is fast, man. He wasn't the best qualifier, but he was still fast. And every time someone says he wasn't aggressive enough, every year he would modify his driving and learn and get better and faster and more aggressive and carve past people and do all this kind of stuff. Hakkinen, if he was lower than 3rd, he'd give up and just stop. Yeah. He'd like, oh, I'm not at the front.
Do you remember that time when he spun off at the first chicane at Monza?
Oh, he's on his
he got out and he was in tears. Remember, he was on his knees.
Yeah, he couldn't handle. I mean, obviously the pressure. I'd feel for him because the pressure was really getting to him. That was his 2nd season, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But he does one overtaking manoeuvre, one at the end of the Kemmel Straight, going into Lacombe. One, and because. Him and Schumacher both go around a slower car and he ends up in front. Oh, what an amazing overtake. He's the best overtake in the... One! And they keep replaying it. DC, he goes to Red Bull and he's like revitalised. It's like, we were talking about getting your mojo back. He was finding it fun again. And suddenly he's like carving past people like a nut job and he's 50. Well, he's not the same age as me, but however old he was then, he was getting on a bit, wasn't he? And he was doing a fantastic job of racing. What a racer. 2-time Monaco winner. He out-Schumachered Schumacher in the 3rd one, because it would have been 3 in a row if he'd have done it. He was on pole. He did what Schumacher normally did, which was put it on pole at the last possible second, like Senna did and all that kind of stuff. And he did it. It's like, God, DC's... hates qualifying and he's done it. He's on pole and he's McLaren for the 3rd time that season switched off because they had a launch control and the launch control went, no, not today. Because it was a PlayStation 1 or Xbox One or whatever software in it. I don't know. Run by Windows.
I hate to stop all the fun. I hate to kind of... But we have been going for 2 hours, 10 minutes and all my family on the side are asleep, and unfortunately they can hear me talk through the room. So it has been fascinating, and I definitely think we must continue this conversation. Perhaps next week, if you're all up for it, you'd be welcome to come back.
I will have to check with my agent to see if I'm available.
I'll pay you in.
Before we go, I've made another promise earlier to I think it was Dutchy that I've got to nag Neil to tidy his bedroom, but I promised I'd do it in a voice like anti-Dutchy. Oh, I don't know, young man. You need to get yourself sorted out. Get the Hoover out. Put those clothes away. Ooh. Naughty boy.
Knowing Dutchy, and me and Dutchy have fairly regular WhatsApp conversations. There will be much fouler language used than that.
Oh well, I wasn't going to do that. If I could do a decent Dutch accent, I've heard other people do them, and you got to. I can't do it.
Yeah,
so
I'll tell you what. There's a few YouTubers that I don't watch everybody. I watch when I can. After I've streamed, I tend to just ignore YouTube and I just sort of switch off from it. But if I do watch people, Dutchy is hilarious. He's such a funny guy.
We'll have to try and get him on. Simon. That would be quite fun. We'll have to try and see.
Yeah, honestly, if you can get him on here, it would be an absolute riot because he's hilarious. He's so funny.
And we need to have you on again, Matt, so we can go into more detail about your channel and things. I know today's been slightly different because we've been doing our GT7 chat and our F1, but it's been a pleasure, though, to have you on.
Yes, if anyone's not subscribed, don't subscribe. Listen to what I'm saying. Please subscribe to our LT50. Please, thank you very much.
Will do.
See, Matt's used to it because his dad's likes to talk to people. So Matt's, I can see that he's like, he's
very
back
patient.
He's back years, like listening to the conversation between his dad and somebody else, just anybody else, putting in the odd thing every now and again. He's used to it, I think.
But thanks to everybody who's been watching as well in the comments and been writing comments or just watching silently there in the background. It's been fantastic to have you on and really just to be able to host this show and to have all these guys here talking about Formula One and finding out our views and also about GT7 as well, our favourite game. And of course, our favourite game. I can see you all shaking your head. But
ACC, yes.
Yes.
It's lots of fun, and I'm sure it will get better. So we'll be back again next week. Certainly myself and hopefully Roo and for Not That Quick and for RL, you're welcome to join us again next week if you feel that you want to.
I want to modify your saying. I want to combine, because you used to have a different one, which was a rip-off of what Schumacher used to say. And then you changed it when you became a bus driver. And I think it'd be quite good to combine them. So instead of saying, you say, drive fast, but crash your bus faster. Do you not like that?
Hang on, wait, hold on. Hugh, are you still a bus driver?
Yes.
Oh,
this is an old Arriva top.
Yeah. Can't you tell? That's why he left Arriva, because he wasn't miserable enough. Exact change.
And I will be on track soon. Larson is saying I will be on track soon. I'm doing lots of driving tomorrow, but possibly Wednesday. We'll see what we can do Wednesday, or possibly might actually be in for a little bit of time on Friday as well. So we'll see what we can do. But no, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you all on the show, and for all our viewers as well. If you haven't hit that like and subscribe button, it would be great for you to do it for not just this channel here, the Hugh Hatrick channel, but for all the channels represented, for Not That Quick, for RL250, even for Roo. Go and give him a sub.
No, don't do that. I've been sat on 98 for ages. I don't even know why I do it. I don't even know why I do it. Well, every now and again I just put some little thing up, and I'm like, and no one looks at it, and it's fine. I look at it and I go, yeah, that was all right. Or I go, why did I do that?
The only one who insults
I have no idea.
Me and Mark is out here like, oh, thanks, I really appreciate it. Ruth's like, don't do that.
No, don't do that. It's in the description of the channel. Hello, numpties. Get lost. The hell are you looking at me for?
You could work for Arriva there, Roo.
If they gave me a job. Job centre refused to train me up in bus driving. Apparently, I wasn't serious
try not
enough.
To crash. Or drive fast and drive your bus even faster. Take care, everyone. Good to see you all. We'll be back next week, and hopefully for a stream as well for my racing. Bye just now.
Look at the waves. Love the waves.